Metal Jesus here, and I am back again with Kelsey. How's it going?
Good. Thanks for having me back.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, so today we're going to be talking about the PlayStation 3, what to look for, what the different models are, some of the different accessories, and some of our favorite games.
You guys have been asking for this buying guide for a long time, and we're finally getting to it, and I think you guys are going to really like it. Let's take a look. Alright, so we're going to start with the first model, and you brought this one, which is the original PlayStation 3.
Yeah, so this is huge. I looked it up. It is 11 pounds.
It feels heavy. It's solid.
So this is the one they first debuted. This is actually one of the backwards compatible ones, and not all of the fat ones are backwards compatible. By backwards compatible, I mean compatible with the PS2, because every single PS3 plays PS1 games, if you didn't know that, which is awesome. So the PlayStation 3, the first one they put out here, it's heavy, it's big, it basically has a PS2 shoved in there. They're really prone to overheating.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but they are pretty cool. And when Sony debuted this at E3, they kind of got like booed off the stage. They wanted $600 for this thing when it first came out.
I remember that announcement going, wow, that's quite a bit of money for a console,
It's
right?
steep. Yep.
Especially at the time, I was like, oh, I still like my PS2. I'm totally fine, right?
Absolutely. And I personally recommend just keeping a PS2. If you find one of these for a good deal and it works, absolutely. But don't go spending the extra money off of it, because you will probably have to get it repaired at some point.
Interesting. It's funny that it's so collectible, but yet it's, you know, it has that problem. So how can people tell, though, if it's one of the earlier ones?
The biggest tell is there's 4 USB ports on the front of this console. So, I mean, that's literally it. If it's a fat model and it's got 4 USB ports, unless someone like took out all the guts and, you know, put a different PS3 in there, you've got yourself a backwards compatible PS3.
And now, one of the interesting things, though, about the original model was that it didn't come with a lot of hard drive space. I mean, 20 gigs was, I think, the minimum, right? 20
and then 60 were... Yeah.
So it's funny because people would potentially want this today, but they would almost immediately want to upgrade the hard drive, which you can do in the PlayStation 3, which is one of the really cool things about it.
And not only can you shove a new hard drive in there, you can also just plug in like a USB drive or an actual external hard drive. The only problem is you can only store, once you format it to work for the PS3, you can't store other stuff on it, so it's got to be your dedicated PS3 one.
That makes sense. The other interesting thing about the PlayStation 3 at the time was that they went all out. I mean, it's a Blu-ray player, which is pretty awesome. At the time when this came out, this is one of the best Blu-ray players you could buy.
Yeah.
Certainly one of the cheapest.
Just like when the PS2 came out, it was a cheap DVD player alternative, so...
The other thing, too, is that it has an unusual amount of slots for... like compact media. It has one for the proprietary Sony, I forget what they call that, the Magic Gate.
Oh, yeah.
You know, for PSPs, I guess they use that. And I think they got rid of that, though, eventually, didn't they?
Yes.
Most people didn't use it.
That's not,
right?
I mean, that's definitely not on the other models.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. That's the first one. And then, of course, the Slim, which is the one I have. And I think you have it, too, right?
I do, yeah. And this is my favorite model.
Yeah, me too.
It's smaller than the fat one, for sure, obviously, you know, being called the Slim. But it's still not too tiny, doesn't feel cheap or breakable.
No,
it's not backwards compatible with the PS2, of course, but it still does play PS1 games. So I really like this model. It's got all the normal things you would need, like HDMI and also just regular composite and component out. Has 2 USB ports. This is pretty much the standard model, and this is what you'll probably end up finding most likely in the best working condition if you're looking for one just at a garage sale or a thrift store.
That's true. So they also made some slight improvements to this as well. So for instance, it actually uses a little bit less energy, which is cool. So your energy bill will probably be less, I guess, but also it's quieter.
Yes.
And that's a huge thing. So that was definitely a selling point when this first came out for me, because I waited to get it, and then it was like, okay, yeah.
I should have waited.
You had an original?
I did, yep. Yeah, I spent a lot of money on that thing.
$600.
Yeah. Well, I did split it with my little brother, so I got a little bit of a better deal on it. But
that's cool.
Yeah, it was not worth it.
And so they also changed the font as well. Not a big deal, but they basically,
And it's engraved this time.
It is, and it's that kind of matte black. I like it a lot.
Yeah. So this is a good model to get for sure.
Yep.
And these have bigger hard drives. Most common model is going to be like 160, 120, 250 gigs.
Yeah.
Which is plenty.
Yeah, you can definitely work with that. And then they released the Super Slim.
Super Slim.
Also called the George Foreman Grill.
Hear that nice little noise
I don't
there?
know. Am I the only person who calls it that, or is that?
No, I think that's real.
Okay, yeah.
So the cool thing about this is rather than, having the eject button like on the other one, it just pops right out. So this thing is cool because it slides around, I guess, but it also makes it feel a little bit more breakable.
It does.
And
It's a little bit. It feels a little bit cheap.
Yeah, it's pretty.
Well,
it's tiny.
I think the nice thing about that from a collecting standpoint is that there's less moving parts to break.
That's true. That's a very good point.
So hopefully that'll last for quite a while. I mean, who knows, but we'll see. But this is the last model, right?
This is the last model they put out. We did get a couple colors here in the States. We got like a red God of War bundle one. And this actually ranges from the smallest PS3 hard drive, 12 gigs, which is like nothing.
12
gigs. It's nothing.
Huh.
Don't get that. Or do if you have an external hard drive kicking around, but don't get that and think you're going to be able to put games on it. And then it also has one of the largest, which is 500 gigs.
Okay.
So, look and see which model you're getting. They all have the model numbers printed on the back, and you can look it up pretty easily which ones have which hard drives natively.
I mean, the nice thing is that if you get it, like, say, a garage sale, though, again, you can always upgrade the hard drive.
Absolutely.
And that's a very nice feature of the PlayStation 3. I like that a lot. That's cool. So, okay, those are the consoles. Not a lot going on there, but they had 3 different versions, which is awesome. But now we want to get into the accessories. We should probably start with the controllers.
Yes.
And I love this because before we started shooting this, you asked me which controller I had. I had no idea there was 2 versions of the controller. So.
There are 2 versions of the controller, and you will not notice that they're any different unless you look at the writing right here. And you actually don't have a regular 6-axis. You just have 2 DualShock 3s, which is better. The difference between the 6-axis and the 6-axis DualShock 3 is that the DualShock 3 ones have tilt and rumble. So there's none of that on the 6-axis. It's a cheaper controller. If you don't really care, you can get them for usually $10 to $15 cheaper.
So it doesn't have rumble?
No rumble.
Oh, it's funny about that. I always turn rumble off.
Really? Interesting.
Every console, because I just don't like, it's distracting. I don't know what that is, but yeah, so I never knew that.
Huh. Yeah, you probably could have saved some dollars and just done the 6-axis.
Interesting. That's so funny. So one of the nice things about the PlayStation 3 controllers is that they are rechargeable and they're wireless.
They don't have, unlike the 360 controllers, you don't have to put any batteries in this.
Yes. So. And they're lighter than the 360 controllers.
True.
I like these quite a bit.
I'm actually not a huge fan of the classic Sony controller design.
What?
I think maybe it's just my hands or something. I'm not really sure.
You're breaking my heart.
I'm sorry. and this is coming from someone who has been playing Sony consoles their whole life, but
well, now people
can do better.
Didn't people complain about this compared to the 360? I think it was like people like the 360's
the triggers better.
Right?
Yeah, I think, and I can see that because this has a little bit. It kind of feels like
it's mushy.
Mushy. That's a good word for it. Yeah.
Huh.
But overall, I mean, it's a pretty good controller, especially for it being wireless and rechargeable. That's something that every controller should be, and I'm surprised it took this long.
And they last a long time. These actually, the charge for me lasts longer than the PlayStation 4 controllers.
Yes. Well, the PlayStation 4 controller charged.
I know. It's like, maybe it's that touch screen on there.
Maybe, yeah. But these are pretty good.
So let me ask you this, though, is that, do you know about how long the batteries will last in here? I mean, do you, at Pink Gorilla, do you guys ever have to replace them, or?
No, I've never had to replace them, but I've noticed that they have started to drop off.
And they will, sure.
And these, surprisingly, for those of you who like fixing things, PS3 controllers are not all built with the same parts. There's a couple different versions that you cannot tell from the outside whatsoever. You open it up and you'll be like, oh, this looks different on the inside than this identical looking controller.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So kind of difficult to repair in that aspect because you never really know what you're going to get when you open them up. Or at least when you open up two and you're trying to put parts from one in the other.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, well, that doesn't work.
Interesting. Okay, so we covered the controllers, but there's one more controller, isn't there?
No, there's not. No, there's not.
Yep,
No, there's not.
The infamous Move. So, I'm a proud owner of the Move.
As of today.
As of today. It's funny because we were doing this video. I'm like, oh, we gotta cover the Move. Like that was. I mean, it wasn't a major thing, but Sony tried to make this a big deal.
Yeah, and a lot of people really tried. I guess all of the companies really tried to follow the Wii's motion thing. Yep. They all had their own version of it. Sony had the Move, and Xbox had the Kinect. But so. It's really gimmicky. It doesn't work well outside of the Wii, and I think most of you guys have known this if you've played with the Kinect or with the PlayStation Move. There are some good games, or some at least entertaining games, but for the most part, it's just a little bit too clunky and gimmicky, and just not an experience that you absolutely need to have.
Yeah, it was funny because when we were buying these today, I was like, I'm probably the only person in the whole Seattle area who's bought these in the last 6 months.
Probably. And it didn't really work out for them. They bundled this with a game called like Sport Champions or Championship Sports. Yep. I apologize if I got that name wrong, but
the reason why I actually wanted to buy this, I'll be honest, is because I love SOCOM, and the last version of SOCOM made for the PS3 supports the Move.
And they had this really weird rifle thing.
Yeah.
And if you had told me earlier, I know where one of those is, and I would have brought it. But,
yeah, I don't know if it's any good, but I was like, okay, I'll do that. I'm such a dork.
Yeah, well, that's kind of cool because at that point it's a light gun game.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just a really clunky, weird way of
with this ball on the
going about getting a light gun game.
So those are most of the accessories. I mean, there's a remote for your Blu-ray player if you want, which is kind of nice. Mm-hmm. That we don't have to try to control with the controller. The only other thing I want to mention, though, that makes the PlayStation 3 unique, in my opinion, especially compared to the 360, is that the power supply is built into it. So if you're out and about, you don't have to worry about this brick of a power supply. Yep. It's already in here, and I love that about Sony. They're smart.
Usually very good about that. It seems like they have, other than the PS3, they've always had like a model where it does have one. Like the PlayStation 2 Slim has the brick, and the PlayStation ONE, the little mini one, that has kind of a brick on the wall part of it. But yeah, the PlayStation 3, all very universal cords, things you probably just have lying around your house if you lose it.
Yeah, which is, again, great if you're at a garage sale and someone just has it there. You can pretty much just buy it as is, and more than likely you're going to be able to take it home and use it.
Absolutely. So. I mean, and they all have HDMI on them, or if you have a PlayStation 1 or 2, you'll also have the cords that fit in them. They work for every single PlayStation, which is really awesome.
Yeah, definitely. All right, well now let's check out some games we think you should get. So I'm going to start with a heavy hitter. It's probably my favorite game on the PlayStation 3. I freaking love it, and that is Uncharted 2. Have you played this?
That is, it's like the most quintessential PlayStation 3 series right there is the Uncharted series.
Absolutely. Like, the first game is pretty good, but it wasn't perfect. The second game, I think this game's perfect. I mean, I just love the characters.
That's a bold statement.
I know, and I stand by it because I actually recently replayed this game, and I was like, yeah, this game's awesome. It just has some of the best characters of any game. I love them all. I love how it goes back and forth the time. I love the level design, the cover-based shooting, the graphics. It's all good.
So you're excited for the new one?
Yes.
Even after that whole E3. Did you watch the E3 where it it cut out midway through the demo?
Oh, no, I didn't watch it live.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's right. I heard about that. Yeah. I'm so pumped.
Here's our game. It's totally broken.
Oh, well, but it's E3 and they're showing like unfinished games, but it looks amazing. It's supposedly the last one. I don't believe that for a second because it makes so much money. But yeah, absolutely. So love the Uncharted series.
So I'm going to go kind of different direction, but this is probably my most played game on the PS3, and that's Little Big Planet, or at least as a series, the Little Big Planet series. Some of the best multiplayer on the PlayStation 3. There's not a whole lot of great multiplayer games, if I'm being totally honest, on the PlayStation 3, but you have to have this one. It's just fun puzzle platforming, really fun to play by yourself or with friends. There's lots of customization. You can make your own levels. Definitely a must-have, and also very, very cheap. I would be surprised if you didn't find this at a garage sale or at a game store for $10 or under.
That's true. All right, next up for me, another one, but The Last of Us.
Another obvious one.
Another obvious one.
We need the obvious one.
I know. That's why I like these buying guides, because then I don't have to talk about hidden gems. We're going to talk about like the games that hopefully most people will agree with, and that is The Last of Us. I love this game. It breaks your heart in the beginning of it, and then it just goes from there. It's a total roller coaster. Great graphics. And there's also an HD version of this on the PlayStation 4. I haven't played it yet, but I've heard it's good.
I have not played the HD version, but...
Yeah, I plan to.
Yeah. So next I've got Red Dead Redemption, probably my favorite Rockstar game of all time.
I would agree.
Yeah. Rockstar is the people who do Grand Theft Auto. They've been doing it forever, obviously, but this was something they did on the PlayStation 3 and the Xbox 360 and PC, I guess now. This is pretty much like Wild Wild West GTA. So you're a cowboy and there's just tons of open world exploration.
Yeah. Cool story.
Great story, great mechanics, and awesome soundtrack.
Yeah.
Awesome soundtrack.
That's a good point. I forgot I downloaded the soundtrack like immediately. When
this. And unlike some of the other Rockstar games, this soundtrack was entirely made for this game, so they didn't pull any like existing songs. They were all made specifically for this game.
It's funny you picked that, because I've been missing that game. Like, I want to go back and replay it, because I played it when it came out.
Me too.
And it's like, oh man, I want to go back. That's a game they need to do an HD remake for.
Yeah.
For modern.
Well, is it not already HD?
Well, it's technically HD. True.
Isn't The Last of Us also HD?
Okay,
Why
fine.
are we even talking about this?
But you know what I'm saying? It's like, just bring it back. Like, I'm surprised they haven't made a sequel to it, to be honest. I mean,
yeah, I really thought
time.
they would, but you never know. I mean, it seems like Rockstar pretty much only does the Grand Theft Autos. For the multiples.
That one is special edition. Does that have like the zombie and all that stuff in there?
No, that's the Game of the Year edition.
Okay.
This one actually came out, I believe, at launch or very close to launch. This just has, it includes like the soundtrack and some extra outfits or weapons or something like that. Game of the Year edition is great though, or you can just buy it. It's called Undead Nightmare, and it is my favorite DLC.
I haven't played it.
Oh my god, it's so great. Okay,
Yeah.
so it's Zombie Apocalypse Wild Wild West, and you can ride 4 horses of the apocalypse, death and famine and all that stuff, and they're like flaming horses.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's amazing.
Oh. Huh.
It's amazing.
Okay, I'll have to do that. Next up for me is another kind of obvious one, but I have to mention that is Heavy Rain, which is, it's kind of like an adventure game sort of thing with a lot of quick time events, a lot of sleuthing, kind of trying to find out. It's basically a kidnapping murder mystery sort of thing.
And this is kind of like before the Telltale games got really big and popular. This was kind of what we had.
Yeah.
Really good narrative and
some really hard choices in this that even today, it's like if I close my eyes, I can remember that. I'm not even going to describe it, but there's some hard choices in here, but it's pretty awesome. It's very cool. Looks and great graphics too.
Yes, definitely. So I want to talk about Ni no Kuni. This is probably the biggest RPG on, or JRPG, excuse me, on the PlayStation 3. This is a level 5 Studio Ghibli mashup, so beautiful graphics, just really wonderful animation, awesome story, and it's really, really freaking long. So if you like long JRPGs, definitely pick it up. Also not too expensive considering how much you get out of it.
Right.
This one is really, really cool.
Cool. Next up for me, I love my racing games, and my favorite is Pacific Rift. This game looks amazing. Just the mud physics alone, like I don't even mud physics. I don't even know what.
Good selling point.
Yeah, I know, but it's like. I don't know. I'm a nerd, and so I love that stuff. Like, it sprays on the screen. It's stupid. I'm not going to justify it. But this is a really fun racing game. One of the things I like about this series is that there's always multiple paths through a level, and also too they have different kinds of car types. So they'll have like heavy kind of plows, but then they'll have like four-wheel drives, they'll have ATVs, they'll have motorcycles, and they all feel and work differently in the game. And so depending on how you want to race, you can really tailor it to your sort of style. So.
And you have the rumble off for this, huh? I bet this is a great game that utilizes that.
Yeah, I'm not
really
taking
well.
full advantage of those mud physics. am I?
Yeah, you were just talking about how great the mud physics are. You don't even know.
Fair enough.
Maybe they're bad.
Fair enough.
So the last one I want to talk about is Dragon's Crown. This also came out on the Vita. I think you can get this on PlayStation Network, but it is a really great Atlas game. It's kind of like a beat 'em up RPG hybrid.
Yeah.
So you can play as like 6 different characters, and it's plays like a beat 'em up, but there's skills and stuff that you earn.
It's addictive.
Really beautiful game. Really weird art style, and you'll probably look at some of the characters a little weird, but it's a really cool game and definitely one worth picking up.
And then I am shocked that when we were picking out these games, you said you had not played Journey.
I know, that's like my biggest what do you call that? Like a gamer guilt right there.
Yeah, it's not long either.
It's short, and I own it, and I just have not plugged it in yet.
I'm sure you're not alone, because it's not your typical game, right? It's more of an experience. I mean,
it's more of a journey, would you say?
I know. But it really is special. I played it twice because there's just something about this experience. I don't know. It's just... It got great graphics. It has a really interesting multiplayer aspect to it where you can't really speak to everyone, you chirp to people, and then at the very end it tells you, or it shows you all the people that you hooked up with during the game. And I don't know, it's just so much fun, and it's definitely worth the 2 hours. It's kind of like take the journey. So
right. And the cool thing about this physical edition here is it also comes with 2 other really cool games, Flower and is the other one Flow?
Yeah, Flow
and Flower. They
I think possibly the same developer. I'm not sure.
I think so.
Yeah.
So this is a pretty good deal for your money, just because you get 3 really beautiful, kind of weird games. But Journey is the one I hear you need to play.
And then finally, we were going through our collections, and you brought over some HD remakes because the PlayStation 3 had tons of them. And I start pulling out all of them, my HD remakes as well.
I think we have... this probably isn't all of them, but this is...
Yeah, well, I went crazy for a while. So for a while, I was on a mission to try to buy them all, because on the PlayStation 3, there was just a crap ton of them. So we kind of want to cover some of these. Just because, if you're not into these kind of games here, and you definitely should go back and kind of explore some of the previous generation, because they did a great job on some of these.
PlayStation 2 is an amazing console, and while you may not be able to play the games on your PS3 unless you've got one of those big fat ones, you can experience most of the highlights just through these HD remakes, which is awesome.
And so some of the highlights here, like the Silent Hill HD collection.
No, that one's terrible. Have you actually played that?
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. No, that one's actually bad.
All right.
Forget about that one.
I haven't played it. Zone of Enders HD.
Yeah,
though.
okay, now you're getting good. All right.
the God of War games that they remade from the PSP versions are really good.
Yeah.
What else we got here? Jack and Daxter, Sly Collection, the Metal Gear Solid Legacy.
Devil May Cry.
Yeah.
We've got all kinds of really good stuff here. Ratchet and Clank, Splinter Cell Trilogy. If you like JRPGs, I strongly recommend the Tales of Symphonia Chronicles. It's pretty cheap, and it's much cheaper than any other format Tales of Symphonia is on. It was originally a GameCube game, but it looks really great in HD, and worth picking up for like the $12 or $15 it's going to cost you. We've also got...
Kingdom Hearts was well represented.
Yes, very well represented. Kingdom Hearts 1.5 and 2.5, it pretty much covers like every Kingdom Hearts they've put out. I mean, they're missing a couple, like the 3DS one.
Right.
But for the most part, they're almost all here.
Eco, is that how you say it? Eco?
I say Eco. I'm not actually sure if that's correct, though. That's just how I've been saying it my whole life. So.
Shadow of the Colossus, which is great because the original PlayStation 2 version kind of it struggled a little bit with the camera and the sort of frame
draw
rate.
distance, definitely.
So this fixes that.
Final Fantasy X and X-2, awesome HD remake. I mean, that game already really pushed the limits of the PlayStation 2, so it looks even better with this. And then, why have they not made this in HD yet? But the good news is, you can still play this on your PlayStation 3. It won't be in HD, but you can play all of your original PlayStation games on every single model of the PlayStation 3.
And the PlayStation Network sells a lot of these digitally as well.
Yes,
I mean,
and really cheap.
It's amazing, yeah, and they run sales all the time. So, you know, the PlayStation 3 is an awesome console. I waited quite a while to buy it. I mean, you saw that the Slim was my first one.
Right.
Because I was really happy with the Xbox 360, even though I had to send it back to Microsoft multiple times. But I didn't think I needed it. And when I got it, it soon became like, I love it. I mean, it's just such a great console.
I download so much on the PlayStation 3 as well. I mean, like I said, you can play the PlayStation 1 games on it, but a lot of them are available for so cheap that it's like almost worth just downloading that version and having it already on there and not having to get up and find your disc and pop it in the console.
Yeah, that's true. And your PSP connects to it as well, so you can download stuff for your PSP to there, connect it, put it on your PSP. Even the Vita works with it.
Yep.
I mean, so it's an entire ecosystem. It's a pretty awesome console.
It is pretty great.
All right, so we would love to know down in the comments what games you think people should get when they first jump into the PlayStation 3. Obviously, there's a lot that we didn't cover here. Also, I happen to have a series of hidden gems for the PlayStation 3, so I'm going to link to that in my video here as well. Thanks for coming on. Where can people find you on the interwebs?
You can find me on Twitter at KelsLewin, or you can follow my podcast, not my codcast, although... Yeah, maybe I'll talk about fish sometime. My podcast at GameBlitz Show or GameBlitz.libsyn.com.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, guys, for watching my channel. Thank you for subscribing, and take care. Metal Jesus here, and I am back again with Reggie.
Glad to be back, bro. Now, today, guys, we're going to do, of course, a buying guide on the PSP system, which is our favorite system. One of our favorite systems.
I love the PSP.
Yes, me too. So basically, we're going to cover the different models, different colors, UMD, games we think you should own, and a couple of accessories. So let's take a look.
All right, well, let's jump into the hardware here.
All right, here we go. Let's start off with the first model, of course. This is the 1000 series.
Sony sent me that.
They did?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I got that on launch day, actually. I was reviewing video games for Sony, and they sent me that.
Dude, I had to stand in line, man. Oh, you're lucky, dude.
Well, I don't mean that to brag, but I mean, it was so exciting when this thing was announced. I could not wait to get it. So they basically sent me that, and they sent me a box of all of the release day games.
Oh, nice. You know, there was so much hype for this system, like even before it was coming out. So it was just pretty amazing when it came out. I mean,
well, I think for me personally, I like Nintendo's handhelds, but they're always like a generation or two behind in technology as far as the graphics and stuff like that. And so for that, Sony was like, we're going to try to bring PlayStation 2 quality graphics and gameplay to the handheld.
Yes.
And in addition to that, they also did movies and stuff like that. But I mean, that was their goal, and that thing was pretty powerful when it first came out.
It sure was, man. I just remember how like excited I was when I got it. I had 3 games for it. I think it was Dax, Darkstalkers, and one other, Ridge Racer, of course.
Ridge Racer, yeah.
Yeah, excellent game. This model, though, when it first came out, I noticed that, you needed a memory card for it.
And so we wanted to mention that a little bit. There's a couple things to know about the PlayStation, or the PSP right off the bat. You do need a memory card.
Yeah.
And they're very specific. So they're memory stick duo Pro Duos, right?
Yeah, that's it. It was bundled with a memory stick duo, but it was 32 megabytes, which was like just enough to get you started.
Yeah, that's true. Because this one here is a 2 gigabyte, which I think is kind of the minimum now, right?
Yeah.
But it does hold a lot of save games.
Yeah, definitely.
But if you get a 4 gig, you have like a 64?
I have a 64 gig now in line.
Jeez, that's crazy.
Yeah, I'm ready to go just in case if I want to download movies on it.
Yeah.
And some games have installs too, stuff like that. And then you have a collection of digital games. It's perfect for that. So.
You mentioned it wasn't Ridge Racer. I think it was Wipeout. They actually had a bunch of downloadable tracks that you could get later on, and there was a ton of them.
That's right.
Yeah,
I forgot about that.
And again, you had to have space on your memory card. So if you're going to buy a PSP, you will want to get a memory card. Thankfully, they're not as expensive today as they were when they first came out.
They're a lot cheaper now. I mean, I think the worst of what I saw is that when like a 4 gig was going for like $120 back in the day.
So ridiculous.
Yeah, just for 4 gigs. gigs.
Reminds me of the Vita. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I know, right? But also, what's good about the PlayStation, the portable, is that it doesn't. You don't have to be specific to a certain memory card brand. As long as
yes, that's very true.
As long as it's a dual system, a dual that'll go into it, it'll work fine. So
yeah, that's true.
Good.
But so the other thing to know is that it does have rechargeable batteries, and depending on the model that you buy, they're either a little bit bigger or thinner.
Yeah.
So this is the one for the original.
Let me see that real fast. This is cool. This is the expanded battery. The expanded one, yeah.
Oh, I might have bought one at some point.
That's awesome, dude. Because this one has I think they offer 20% more battery life in the system, so that was pretty cool. That's awesome.
Yeah. So a couple things about the PSP I guess we should mention is that obviously it came with I was trying to pop it open because I assume
because like the 2000 model.
So a couple things here. This is the original, and this thing is built like a tank. It was typical kind of Sony quality is that if they're going to do it, they're going to make it so it's built, to withstand some punishment. And the original model, the 1000 series, is really well made.
Yeah.
And you can tell because it is a little bit heavier, it's a little bit thicker, and the drawer pops open right there. That's how they originally did that. Couple things to notice here. I guess we should mention the UMDs. So the PSP is unique. It is one of the only, if not the only system to ship with an optical drive. An optical disc drive.
Okay.
Where everything was like solid state, right? What they decided to do was make this universal media disc, and it's like a little mini DVD. I think it stores about 1.8 gigabytes of space.
Oh wow!
So it's not quite the same amount of storage as like a DVD, but
yeah, because I noticed about those when you're playing them, it's pretty bare bones with the menus and stuff. It's like scene selection and play movie, and that's right. Maybe audio options. That's about it. No extras or anything like that.
Yeah, and the reason why they did that is because back in 2004, the solid state, like SD cards and stuff like that, they were still pretty expensive. I mean, you would pay $100, for not very much room, and so they really wanted to make it so that they could have kind of PlayStation 2 quality graphics on there, full motion video. Right. Speaking of movies, they intended to do a bunch of things with this.
It's just it was costly, and
it was their own format, you know. But I think originally though Sony was thinking that it was going to be the next version of CDs for portable devices.
I actually did too at first, and then noticed that these things were pretty expensive, and having a collection of them, and you could only watch them on the PSP system until the 2000 model.
That's right. So let's get to the second model. So this is the PSP 2000 right here. Now they did a bunch of really cool things with the 2000. For one, I should probably mention this is a sticker that I've applied to this. It's like a steampunk sticker. It was a Jellaskins. It was a company that basically made a bunch of these for the PSP. So if you're wondering what this is, that's what it is. But this is where I think they really got it right.
Definitely.
I like the 2000.
Yeah, the first thing about the 2000 that was fantastic was you were able to plug it into your television and play games and watch movies that way.
Yes, and that's what this is. So this cable right here, it has a special plug for the bottom where you just literally right there, you just plug it in, and then you can output to your television. Initially it did 480i, so interlaced, and then they updated that to 480p for the 3000, I believe, or maybe a firmware for this, I forget. But but it looks really good even on modern televisions. You have to use a zoom option for your TV because otherwise it's in the center.
It's going to be in the center,
yeah, but it looks really good.
It really does, and everything like movies to games, I thought they were fantastic,
So the other thing that they did, it's pretty important, is they doubled the RAM on this. So originally the PSP shipped with 32 megs of system RAM. Now the kernel for the PSP, the actual operating system, uses 8 of that. So it actually cut into it quite a bit, and so that's why some games, initially weren't able to be as nice looking as possible.
Right.
So they doubled it with this. So and then here, just for reference, is the 3000. So they did a couple different changes to the 3000.
Right.
Do you want to talk about those?
One thing I remember, I think they changed the home button to the PlayStation. I can't really remember. They changed one of the buttons on the front.
You're absolutely right. Yeah, I didn't notice that. So it's a PlayStation button.
Yeah. That's definitely how you know it's a 3000 series.
Yeah.
With the 3000 series, I didn't really own one, but I remember they were saying something about the screen effect.
Yeah. So basically, what they did is they put new screen on here that's faster. Wow. So in the 2000, there's a little bit of ghosting. It's not bad. I played tons of games on it. It's not a problem.
Some people were like complaining, like, "Oh no, the other one's better." But
yeah, well, if you compare it to this one, you like say you're playing God of War, you will notice when the cameras that it looks sharper on this.
Right.
However, this one has scan lines. So in other words, the 2000 actually. Oh, I'm sorry, the 2000 here actually looks a little bit clearer,
right.
But this one has slight scan lines. It's a subtle difference that, frankly, when it first came out, people are like a little disappointed. Nowadays, I don't think it really matters. I usually play on the 3000,
right?
Because again, there's less blurring and stuff like that.
Well, you know what?
It's very subtle.
Maybe I should pick one up because I don't have a 3000 model.
So around what is like 2008, 2009, the iPhone and sort of like the app stores are starting to take off, and Sony got the bright idea that, hey, why don't we do a version of the PSP that doesn't even have an optical drive?
Yeah, it's
it's funny. He's doing that because I mentioned, I'm like, Reggie, we should really show the PSP Go on this video. You're like, seriously, bro? What? Why would we show that?
It sounded like a good idea at first, honestly, and then when it came out, that thing was just, the way to get games on it was just so hard because people wanted to have that had the PSP. They wanted to be able to transfer their games to that system. Sony had they had no answer for that.
Yeah, I mean, it was ridiculous. So basically the PSP Go, which we're showing on screen here, we don't have one because it's not really a collector's version of it, in my opinion, because you want physical we like physical games.
Right.
And the PSP Go doesn't have an optical drive, so none of my games work on it. But go ahead.
But to say, though, if that thing did have a drive on it, it would have been a phenomenal system. I think. It would have been perfect. But
it's an interesting idea. I mean, ultimately it flopped pretty big because, again, it's like I was never going to buy it because all of my games don't work on it. I would have to re-buy them through the PlayStation Store to download on it. Now, a couple nice things about it. It is more compact. I like how it slides open. It's kind of cool that way.
It comes with a 16 gigs of built-in memory.
Exactly. So it has quite a bit of room on there to download a bunch of PlayStation 1 games or whatever you want to do. So I think it's an interesting. A lot of people that we know, it's their second PSP, right? Now there is a fifth model. Are you familiar with this?
No.
There is
too early. I was like,
there is one more model. See, even you are learning something in this video.
What's going on here?
Well, the reason why you don't know about it is because it wasn't released here. But there was a final PSP version released in PAL areas only called the PSP E1000 Street.
Now I remember. That name now. Okay. Is it? Oh wow! Is it?
So what it is it's the final version of the PSP, and it's designed to be that sort of budget version. So it cost $100 or £100 or whatever it was, and they did a couple things with it. So first of all, it's really cool looking. It's very similar to this style, but it's completely flat black, like matte black, almost like the second model of the PlayStation 3. So it's a very cool looking PSP, but they did a couple of really interesting things. They removed Wi-Fi. So this should tell you that Sony's going to kill off the store. They removed Wi-Fi from it.
Wow.
Yeah, so you can only play UMDs, which is the opposite of the Go.
Yeah, it's like they couldn't get it right, man.
I know. And then the other thing that they did, which I don't understand at all, they removed stereo and it's mono only.
Mono sound? What are they trying to do?
I don't know.
Back to
Sony is an audio company.
Yeah,
they have a music division and they made it mono only.
I don't even know what to say to that one.
Well, the only thing about it is, again, it's designed for the very casual, whatever, $100, sure, I'll buy it kind of crowd.
Going back to the mono thing, even with headphones in it, it would be mono sound?
I don't know.
If you can, folks, stick to the 3000, 2000, and 1000 models.
Yeah, if you're looking for a recommendation, I highly recommend either the 2000 or the 3000. Really, either one.
Yeah.
And you mentioned that the home button is a really good way to tell. Also, at the bottom of each one of these, at least on mine, have always had this little barcode with the model number. So you'll see that right there.
Yep.
So
2000 has one too, I believe. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. So
all right. So now we want to talk about like a couple of the colors that we have here available for the system. Now here is the silver edition,
which is pretty nice, actually.
Yeah, I think this is the one that came with a Daxter, the Daxter game.
Oh, really? Okay.
I believe this is the model for it. This is a nice little silver and everything. Looks really good.
It does.
Another one here is the blue one. I think this came with Madden.
Oh, okay.
A sports game.
That's a nice color of blue, too.
It really is. I wish I had this one, but oh well. And the next one is going to be the God of War one that came out.
Which has Kratos on the back of it.
It's Kratos on the back.
Yeah, that's a really pretty color of red, too.
Yeah.
And there's a whole bunch of other ones, too. For instance, there's the Darth Vader white one.
Yep. There's one other one. There's a red and black one, another God of War edition that I know of. And then that's all I can really think
What was the Hannah Montana one?
Oh, that was the taffy purple one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Good call.
Yeah.
That was one of the last ones released, too. So.
Okay. But it's cool, though, because, again, there's a bunch of different colors out there, which I really like.
Yeah, definitely. It's always good to have options, you know. You don't want just like the normal black and white stuff, you know. You want a little variety in there.
Yeah.
So it's good that Sony did that. They didn't do it as well as they should have, but I think they did better than most.
Yeah, that's cool. All right, well, now let's move on to some games.
Yes, games. Yes, I'm pumped for that. Let's do this.
Okay, so let's tear into it right here. So what are we going to hit first?
You know what? I will start off with a little bit of action. So let's do a little bit Pursuit Force. Now, Pursuit Force is a game that I love this game because this game is so...
I'm so glad to hear you say that.
Yeah, it's so over the top, but you're basically like a SWAT team police. Yeah. You're chasing the bad guys in the car. You're shooting at each other. You got to like apprehend them. But the best thing about it is your vehicle takes damage, and their vehicles take damage. But if your vehicle takes too much damage, it blows up. So you have to jump off of the vehicle onto theirs, take over their vehicle.
Yeah,
it's just really...
This was a game that came out where I was like, why didn't somebody think of this before? It's such a brilliant idea, right? Like it's driving, shooting, and a little bit of platforming when you're going back and forth, or
jump into a vehicle or whatever, trying to catch the bad guys. It was,
and there's two of them. So.
Yeah, this is actually Extreme Justice is actually the second game. The first one is just Pursuit Force, which they're both good games. They're really cheap games. I mean, I'm sure Pursuit Force 1 is probably like $5.
Yeah,
this one maybe 10 at the most. Awesome games.
So, okay, for me, I'm going to cheat a little bit here, but I'm going to talk about the SOCOM games that came out on PSP.
Okay.
So, I'm not going to show all of these other than you just need to know that there's 4 awesome SOCOM games. So the thing is, on the PS2, I love SOCOM.
You were into SOCOM.
Oh, dude, hardcore. I must have played these games like every day for probably a year. And what was really cool is that Sony really supported them on the PSP, and these are fantastic games.
Yeah.
They're basically the full-blown version, well, I shouldn't say full-blown. They're definitely very faithful SOCOM games on the PSP. I mean, they really take it seriously.
Yeah.
Where they have different weapon loadouts. It's squad-based. You can ratchet up the difficulty and like die in one shot, you know. You have to really plan to get through these.
And a lot of people were playing them online. It was like a mass community online.
Yes.
So it was a lot of fun. I only played the first one online. I didn't really get into the other ones because I didn't buy them. But SOCOM, whoa.
Yeah, so it's cool. So they have SOCOM Fireteam Bravo 1, 2, and 3. And then I also want to mention Tactical Strike. So this is kind of an interesting game too if you're a SOCOM fan, because it is a turn-based tactics game in the SOCOM universe.
Okay.
Yeah, so again, if you're looking for like a turn-based version of this, of SOCOM, it's actually pretty awesome, and I believe it only came out on the PSP, so it's pretty cool.
All right, so next game I'm going to do is one of my favorites on here, Metal Gear Solid Portable Ops. It's exclusively to the PSP system. I mean, this didn't come out on any other system. Now, basically, this game is a sequel to Metal Gear Solid 3, I can't remember if it takes place like 10.
It's been forever since I played it.
It's been a long time since I played it. But anyways, what you do in this game is Snake gets kidnapped and he wakes up in this base and everything, and you recruit soldiers.
That's right.
To help you to build an army against the enemies you're fighting against in this game. So really on point game. It took out cinematics and put in like more comic book cinematics, which was pretty cool. So
it was cool.
I think it's still a very cheap game. So. I recommend having this on your system, especially if you like the Metal Gear Solid games, like sneaking based stuff like that. So what else do we have here? Oh, here's another one. Silent Hill and the Shattered Memory series.
Which was on the Wii originally, right?
Was on the Wii, but a lot of people weren't into the gimmicky
I was not into the
I still can't do it. But I got this version. This was the version I got, and this one is amazing. It's a different type of Silent Hill game because in this one you can't really fight enemies. You can run from them and hide.
Right.
So it has that little terror effect, like you have to run from everything and hide because you can't fight them.
Like Clock Tower almost.
Yeah, just almost like Clock Tower. But this one has a really good story to it. It's a re-imaging of the first Silent Hill game, so it has the same characters in it, but it's just like a retelling of it, like in the story of a different way.
Yeah,
really
kind of like from another angle or something, or
and
perspective.
They actually switched the town, switching to like a hellish town. But when it gets to that point where it turns evil, it turns like into ice.
That's right.
So it's really trippy like that.
Yeah,
so,
it's cool. Huh.
Awesome game.
Okay, for me, the next one is going to be a game that only came out on the PSP. I played it a ton. That is Jeanne d'Arc, or Joan of Arc.
Yeah.
So what this is level 5, which everyone knows.
We love it. Galaxy. Right?
Yeah, and Dark Cloud and all those kind of games. So you know the graphics and the characters are going to be awesome, and they are in this game. So this is kind of like a retelling of the classic Joan of Arc story, where she gets a message from God, and she goes on this crusade, and she turns into this badass. But this has like supernatural elements to it. It's just a really well-made game. It reminds me of Final Fantasy Tactics. What I like about this game, though, it's completely in 3D. So it shows like all the characters, the backgrounds, everything. Like you can swing the camera around. It's beautiful, you know. But there's some serious depth here. So I don't think I ever beat this game, and I probably put 100 hours into it.
Oh wow!
Yeah, but it was awesome.
You know, I feel bad because I've had the game for years. I haven't like got to it yet, so I'm glad to know it's made by like level 5, because we love level 5.
Oh yeah, and it's again, it's one of those games that, you know, I don't know if a lot of people have heard about it, but if you own a PSP, people talk about it all the time because it's just so well made. So.
Yeah, and it's a pretty cheap game too, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Perfect. All right, so next one is probably my favorite RPG on the PSP
Not
system.
a cheap game.
And unfortunately, it's not a cheap game. It's Atlas, and you know where Atlas stuff goes. Hexiforce. Now, this game it's not that long. It's a short RPG, but that's good for a portable system.
Right.
Now, basically, there's 2 stories. You can play as the guy and the girl, and the stories are pretty short, but you meet different characters, have different spells. We did a video about it before.
Yeah.
Really solid. If you could get this game, I mean, you won't regret it. I mean, it's a solid game, really good game.
It is definitely one of the more collectible games on the PSP for whatever reason. I mean, did it only come out on the PSP?
Only on PSP, and you know how Atlas has limited print runs. Like they might do 2 print runs and that's it. You know, so I don't think anybody was really demanding it until it became rare, and then by that time, Atlas probably lost interest in making it.
Yeah, interesting. All right, so next up is a game that is super cheap, a really well-made game. It's called Daxter. So this is part of the Jak and Daxter series. It actually takes place during Jak 2, where Daxter runs off for like 2 years or something like that.
It shows what he was doing during that time.
Yeah, you find out what Daxter's been doing. And what I like about this game, for a couple of reasons: one, it shows off the power of the PSP really well. This is an incredibly impressive looking game. I mean, you could almost make the argument it looks like a full-blown PlayStation 2 game. Like, it's really impressive. But more than that, I mean, it's fully voiced with all the voices from the actual game. And he's one of my favorite characters. He's so funny.
Yeah, he is hella cool.
So it's an awesome. You played this?
Yeah, I played it briefly years ago, and I remember like he had to work for some kind of pest company and
pest control. Yeah, he's got a fly swatter.
Yeah, it was like hella fun. So.
Yeah, and he's able to fly or float a little bit because he's shooting bug spray.
If you look at it though, at the Jak and Daxter series, Daxter's pretty much the star if you think about it.
I think so. Yeah, that's true because I mean, in the first game, Jak wasn't even voiced, if I remember.
No, he didn't even talk. He was in that game.
Yeah. So, super cheap game, really fun if you're into like 3D platformers. Definitely check it out.
Yep. All right, so are we on the last game? Yeah, I think we are.
I think we're just these right here.
All right, so Gradius Collection. Now, we had to bring up a shooter on the system because,
you told me about this game.
Yeah, it's perfect because it comes with, I think it's 5 Gradius games. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the Gradius games on one, like, UMD disc. That's awesome to have this. And for those of you who are old school like me, you played the Gradius games, like some of the first shooter games out there. Really solid. And you get 5 of them in here, which are some of the best. Like, you get Gradius 1, 2, 3, 4, and Gaiden, which I haven't played that one. But, pretty solid.
I was going to say, that reminds me is that there's a lot of collections on the PSP. Like you also mentioned the Power Stone collection.
Power Stone, an SNK collection, Capcom.
Metal Slug collection.
Metal Slug Anthology, yes.
Yeah.
There's a lot of those on here. So
the Midway collections, the Atari collection, Activision, there's a ton of these.
So, Sega collection too.
That's right. Which is perfect, again, for on the go. If you are traveling, you want to take a handful of awesome games with you, there's a bunch of really cool collections. So.
Yeah. So, last game, is an RPG, of course.
A game I don't own, and I was like, Reggie, you got to bring that one because I've heard it's awesome.
Yeah, it really is. And this is the go-to RPG. I know I said I love Hexiforce, but this will be next to it. Is a Legend of Heroes Trails from the Sky. Now, this RPG is like, it really gives you that nostalgic feeling of how RPGs were back in the day. And I mean, like, with the story and everything like that, the gameplay is really not too, like, crazy. It's like, simple.
I've heard that the dialogue in this game is really well written.
Really good. I mean, it's so well written that they say, hey, let's do a movie on it. They did a movie for it and everything. Yeah, it's like, there's anime out there for it and everything. So, this is the 4th Legend of Heroes game that came out over here in America. Now, they're working on a couple more right now. There's one coming out next week, like a spin-off of this. But if you get a PSP and you really like RPGs, pick up this game or check it out. It's really mind-blowing.
You know what, though? I do have one more game.
What's that?
I'm going to cheat.
Oh, man.
You know why? Because the PSP is awesome at one thing better than anything else. I'm gonna come over here and grab it.
Let's see what you got. I'll stand over here.
I'm cheating. I'm cheating.
What the?
This is why the PSP is awesome.
Racing games.
Racing games were freaking excellent on the PSP. Especially when you compare the PSP to the DS at the time. Like, don't get me wrong, the DS is decent. I mean, it was Mario Kart and all that sort of stuff. But this was like full-blown arcade quality. And I'm talking like a ton of them here. Like, what do we got? 2 Burnout games. Legends, which is like a best of, and then Domination, which was all new. That also came out on the PS2. The 2 Wipeout games are awesome on here.
Outrun Coast to Coast.
Yeah, Outrun Coast to Coast is awesome, dude. MotorStorm Arcade or Arctic Edge.
Yeah,
that's a shockingly beautiful game.
Yeah, it is,
and it runs really well. Like it's very similar. There's a bunch of the MX versus ATVs, Ridge Racer. A bunch of the Need for Speed games are on here. Now, what's interesting about that is that they're almost better on the PSP because they don't try to be simulators.
Yeah,
so they're more arcadey, right? So they're more fun. Anyway, so I just wanted to mention that racing games on the PSP, man. I love those. Yeah. I love those. All right, dude. Well, thanks for coming on and doing the epic buying guide for the PSP.
Thanks for having me, man.
I know. Love to know what you guys think down below. Do you collect for the PSP? What games do you recommend people pick up day one?
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for watching. If you are interested in learning about more games for the PSP, I have a couple more videos on my channel about PSP hidden gems, as well as a video dedicated to nothing but PSP racing games. So definitely check that out on my channel. MetalJesus here, and I am back again with Jerry, aka Barnacles. How's it going, dude?
It's going pretty good, man. Thanks for having me over.
Thanks for coming over. Do you remember the last time you were on my channel?
I think it had something to do with a retro gaming collection thing going on down in Oregon somewhere. I don't know. I was pretty drunk. Somebody stole my shoe and tried to sell it.
It was a good time.
It was. Very good.
Tell me why you are here today.
Well, I am here today because we're going to be talking about some Xbox 360 stuff. And you know what? I happen to work for that company for a very, very long time.
That's right. That's right. Insider information that we won't share.
Yeah, I don't want to get in trouble.
But this is the most requested buying guide I've ever had.
That just blows my mind.
I know. Well, and so I wanted to bring in an expert, man. That's you.
Yeah, and I'm not biased towards Microsoft in any way. If you guys watch my channel, you know this.
So today we're going to cover the consoles, what you need to know when you're out and about and want to get into collecting them. We're going to talk about some of the accessories, which there are many.
A lot more than could probably fit in this room. Microsoft went a little buck wild.
Totally. And then we're going to talk about some games that you should get day one. Right?
Absolutely.
You ready to do this?
Let's do it, man. This guy right here, you guys might recognize, is the first Xbox 360 that came out. Now, it does have a faceplate on it that you can probably tell us. That doesn't look stock. Tell us a little about that faceplate that's on there.
Yeah, so this faceplate I got when I went to E3 in 2005. Microsoft was giving these out because one of the really interesting things about the Xbox 360 is that they were going for full-on customization.
Yeah.
You know, so a lot of faceplates actually came out for this. Typically, this was white when it first came out, right?
Yeah, I remember there's even artists that were making their own. They were just getting the blanks and painting them up and selling them. Yeah, it was really, really cool.
Yeah, there's got to be 50 to 100 of these faceplates out there of different types and stuff like that. They come with games, which we're going to cover a little bit. So this is the original Xbox. Now, they had 2 versions of the original Xbox. They had the Pro.
Oh, that's right. Which, if I remember, there was the Pro model, and then there was the Arcade. Well, the standard.
It started as Core. They called it Core. So
which just had memory, right?
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So Microsoft did something really interesting. They basically made the hard drive optional.
Yeah, they do like to make a lot of SKUs of things. Yeah. I've noticed that.
Well, I think it's interesting because on the original Xbox, every one of them had a hard drive, right?
Correct.
And for whatever reason, they were like, well, maybe we can save a couple bucks if we don't include a hard drive. The problem with that, you being a developer at Microsoft may have knew or remember, it kind of divided, or it pissed off developers. Oh, yeah. Because if you're making a game, it's really nice to know that all the hardware is uniform across them, right?
Yeah.
And hard drives are very fast compared to optical media. And so when you're making a game, you want to be able to put a bunch of those files on the hard drive if possible.
Well, you have to remember, too, that when the first Xbox came out, most of the games were still being played off of the optical media and not off of the hard drive.
Yeah, I mean, look at how popular the PlayStation 2 was. Yeah. No hard drive that most people had. Right. And that was a great game.
Yeah, I remember. Wasn't there like a couple of games, like, was it like Final Fantasy, I think one of them, you had to have a hard drive.
Yeah, I think the online version of it, right?
Yeah. But that kills sales of stuff like that because again, you have to buy something extra to be able to enjoy that game, and as a software developer, then you get pissed off because you basically have to write off that entire customer base you could have had.
Yeah.
Just because your game needed a little bit more than, was it 4 gigabytes of memory or something? Had a ridiculous small amount of storage in it.
Now going forward today though, it's not really that big of a deal. I mean, I find hard drives at Goodwill by themselves all the time. I suspect Goodwill doesn't even know what they are because they're usually like
they usually don't.
Yeah, they're usually in cords and the phone section, and they cost like $4.
How much of the stuff have you found at Goodwill with like a $5 sticker on it labeled wrong?
Yeah, I know. So, but it's important to know that this is the original version. It had a hard drive that was attachable on the outside. Mm-hmm. There is a huge caveat with these things, though.
Oh yeah.
This is my third one, by the way.
And you're probably one of the luckier ones, honestly, because you guys probably have heard of the Red Ring of Death.
Right.
And the whole Red Ring of Death basically comes from the ring that's on the front of this thing, which luckily they put on there because it became a huge joke. There's four colored LEDs that blink green when you sync a controller to the console, but they also blink red when you have a problem. The Red Ring of Death was when you had 3 of the 4 LEDs basically flashing, which indicated that you had some electronic overheating problems inside that would delaminate some of the boards and actually cause some desoldering, which later people figured out how to fix and kind of capitalized on that.
It was pretty interesting at the time because Microsoft knew they had a problem. At the time, they basically said, it's about 5%. But we now know, that actually that number was closer to 50%.
Right, yeah.
And, and actually, to Microsoft's credit, I've said this before, this is my third one. Every single time it happened, it was actually no big deal. I mean, they basically sent out a box. You would pull your hard drive off, you would mail it all back, and then you'd get another one like a week later.
Yeah, you could even give them a credit card, too, and they would drop ship you a unit. You would ship it back in the original box. And I think it was wasn't it a 3-year extension that they gave on the warranty?
They extended the warranty.
Which 3 years for anything, guys, that's electronic is huge, right? 90 days is pretty much the standard. A year is considered, oh my God, you're an epic company. 3 years was pretty much Microsoft putting their foot in their mouth and saying, yeah, we really screwed the pooch on this one. So they had to have lost a lot of money on replacing those consoles. And the sad thing was, when they replaced the consoles, even the consoles that they sent you as a replacement, some of them had the same issue.
Right, because they hadn't fixed the motherboard yet.
Nope.
So a couple other things to know about the original Model 2 is that you'll notice that I have this attachment back here. That is because the original version did not come with Wi-Fi.
It did not.
It was optional. And so that's why when I bought mine, I bought a Wi-Fi adapter. It does do Ethernet. So, I mean, if you are doing that, if you're still rocking an Ethernet cable, you can do that.
It was all the rage back then.
Yeah. Some other things about it, too, is that this original version did not have HDMI out.
Correct.
So it came with a cable that allowed you to do composite and then component.
Yep, composite and component, where you had the separate channels. There was the red, green, blue, or I forget the other color range. But yeah, you had, and that was considered good because you could do 1080p, I believed. But still, you didn't have HDMI, so it wasn't necessarily digital.
Well, and it highlights that this came out at a time whenever televisions were in transition.
Yeah, they were.
We're talking about the mid 2000s, and a lot of people were getting 480p was considered, oh, that's a cool TV, right? Or 720p, or you had all the interlacing options.
Well,
and stuff.
I remember when this bad boy came out, I picked up a 60-inch digital rear projection Sony TV that was like state of the art. The thing was like $4,000. It was ridiculous,
heavy as hell,
and it had red, green, and blue connector on the back, and that was the best you could do.
Okay.
There was no HDMI to speak of at the time. That was considered, like, if you had those connectors, that was like the best thing you could possibly have. So obviously it makes sense that they had support for the best thing at the time.
Yeah. Now there are some versions of this that won't necessarily red ring. According to some of the sources out there, they did update the motherboards after about 2007 or so.
Yeah.
I would say, though, personally, if I was to get into collecting on the Xbox 360 today, I would not buy one of these. It's a crapshoot unless you can actually test it. That said, my buddy Reggie still has the first the way he bought day one, and it still works. He's like, I'm afraid to touch it.
It also depends on the usage patterns, too. A lot of people had a tendency to leave these run 24 hours a day because of the Xbox Live connectivity on them and because of the media stuff and the sharing of messages and stuff. They would just leave them on like it was a VCR.
Yeah.
And they would tend to overheat sitting in a cabinet of an entertainment center with the doors closed.
That makes sense.
Generally speaking, if you took really good care of them, and I believe if you had it upright so that it could vent the heat off better, you stood a better chance. But if you were a hardcore gamer playing on these things every day, you were going to be met with the red ring of death. So I think Reggie needs to be called out for not being that hardcore of a gamer. At this point, Reg, I'm going to call you out there, bud.
He would absolutely love that. All right, so then they did another model.
They did. You
have two of them here.
I do. I actually brought two. These were actually in bundles. So the Modern Warfare 3 console, the really cool thing about these special consoles, like the Gears of War one here and the Modern Warfare, is that they had a cool feature where when you pushed a button to power it on, it played a sound bite from the game.
Oh, that's right.
So you actually got a cool sound effect when you powered on and powered off the console. The power up and power down noise was very, very specific. This model right here being the second one, I believe this one came out in 2010.
Okay.
And this is the Model S.
Right.
And the
slim.
It's the slim. Yeah. Slim.
Please.
But this guy right here had a little bit of different styling. It had an indentation on the front here, which was a dead giveaway.
It's a little bit more severe. I actually like the design of it. You know how this is kind of swooping, kind of sexy. This is almost Apple-like in its design.
It is.
And this is a little bit more kind of like almost like PlayStation looking in its design as far as like being angular and stuff
for
like
me
that.
Personally, I'll be honest, I like the swappable faceplates. I thought that was a very unique feature.
It's weird when I see a regular white one, I'm like, oh, they looked so plain at the time. Like, because I've had this on since 2005.
Yeah, because everybody was decorating them. That was the whole point. Now, this guy right here actually has an internal hard drive versus a very easy detachable one on it. It still has the same type of connectors, but you'll notice that it has a lot more USB ports on it. Actually, this unit right here has, I believe, 5. Let's see, we got 3 on there, and then I think we have 2 on the front. Yeah, so you have 5 USB connections on this, which can be used for connecting mass storage. Other than that, some key changes that happened on it is you got the actual SPDIF connector right on the main board, so you could connect it to your stereo system through optical to get 5.1 surround sound, whereas with this guy, you needed a special connector.
Oh, that's what you showed me earlier.
Yes, yes. So that's what you needed this, but the most important thing that made this console light years beyond this one was the HDMI. This thing finally got an HDMI cable on it that was capable of doing 1080p.
And also built-in Wi-Fi.
That's right. Built-in Wi-Fi was kind of a big deal around 2010, right? Everybody had it.
Everyone had it.
Yeah, you wanted to play this at Starbucks, you had to have it, right? But these come in bundles, not the unit itself, but these particularly themed units.
Yeah.
That you get, and there was a lot of bundles. These are just the 2 that I have. Just, I don't know, it's really cool if you're a collector, especially if you buy a console for a specific game, which you and I probably are guilty as hell of doing. I mean, when I buy a console, it's not because it's the latest and greatest thing. I go buy it because there's that launch title or a game that I have to have.
And as a collector looking back, these are the ones I want. Like, I want that Star Wars one. Like, because it looks like R2-D2. It's just so freaking cool. Like, you know, that's the one I want now.
We started out with this guy right here.
Yes.
Which was, you know, pretty cool. It was okay. It had some faults. Went to something that was completely epic.
Yeah.
And then where did we end up? Where did we end up here, Grayson? What do we have here?
Well, let me tell you about this one. So this is the E model, and I bought this one completely by accident.
So you told me.
Yeah, I know, because essentially I got really tired of this one, because this one, one thing we didn't mention, the fan is incredibly loud.
Oh, it is.
Super loud. Like, when I play this one, I have to turn my stereo up.
The hard drive in it's fairly loud, too.
I know.
I mean, they're not a quiet unit.
So I got sick of it. I'm like, you know what? They're having a sale. I went to GameStop. I bought that one. I'm like, what the hell is this?
It literally looks at first like it's an Xbox One.
It does. It has
that same split design up on the top with the logos. Even the front of it kind of looks a little bit Xbox One-esque, just a little bit more curvy.
It lost all of the kind of personality of the Xbox, which is kind of weird that they did that.
Well, it lost some other things too.
Yeah. So this is Get it if you just absolutely need one. But basically, they removed one of the USB ports, which
So
I don't know.
therefore-
I don't know why they did that. But then they also removed the digital audio, which is actually that's a big deal for me because on my stereo upstairs, my receiver is like 10 years old.
Yeah.
And so I need that for all the the surround sound that I have. And
Right.
so my PlayStation 3 and my 4 are using that.
Yeah.
I'm not getting on that setup, I'm not getting the audio through the HDMI like I think
Right.
a lot of people would do.
A lot of people are doing the HDMI audio now because
Yeah.
you can get a similar signal.
Right.
But true, like the audiophile guys that invested in a lot of equipment and have the old amplifiers and everything, SPDIF is still like the go-to.
It's missing. And at first I literally couldn't figure it out. I was like, what is going on? Like was I missing it? I mean, it was just weird that they did that. And it seems pretty solid. I've done a bunch of gaming on it since then, and it's cool. But clearly, you have to get this model.
I have to agree with you that this is definitely the model to get.
All right, well, let's take a look at some accessories. Now, okay, so tell me about this. I mean, because there's a lot of people who use this little keyboard attachment.
This thing is absolutely awesome. Now, this keyboard just detaches off the bottom of the controller, and this was an actual accessory by Microsoft.
Right.
This is not third party, and it's a backlit keyboard that allows you to type very, very quickly to your friends. It also had some shortcuts for opening up like the friends list and stuff like that. It just
what's awesome about this is that Microsoft knew that Xbox Live was going to be a big deal. Like they went all in on that to basically make it like
huge bet.
Because in addition to that, obviously, a lot of these consoles would come with, especially later on, with the headsets.
That's right.
And it was really good quality.
It is, and that's another thing I really like about the controllers in general, is these things have no flex to them. Not the diss on Sony, but I do notice on the PlayStation 3 and the 4 controllers, when you move them, you get quite a bit of creaking and movement. They overdid it on the plastic on these things.
Yeah,
I mean,
they're solid.
You could use these to take out an assailant.
So that is them. What is this thing right here? This thing is this a?
I think it's an NSA spying device. Actually, that's not too far from the truth. That is the very first version of the Kinect sensor for the Xbox 360. Now, Kinect was Microsoft's attempt at actually getting full body capture and motion to enter into games, and I actually kind of feel like it was their response to the Wii.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the Wii basically was. I mean, it sold extremely well because gamers and non-gamers could use it. You could literally, if you could move your hands, you could game.
And let's be honest, everybody that bought that console, like the attachment rate on that was like 1. You bought it, and it came with the Wii Sports, and you just bowled your little heart out until everything broke, and it was dirt cheap. That was the reason why that console sold so well. Is parents would go to stores and they would be like, "Oh, I could pay $100 more." And get that, but I'm not going to. I'm going to just get him this.
And actually, to be fair, so most gamers aren't really thrilled about the Kinect, but honestly, the technology is pretty impressive.
Oh, if you want to get technical for a second on this thing actually is an infrared projector that projects points of light on your body, and then they have an infrared camera and a standard camera, and the infrared camera picks up those points of infrared light on your body and determines the distance by the size between the dots.
I love this.
It's no. Try this out sometime. Open up your cell phone and take a picture of the Kinect, or take a video of the Kinect, and as long as there's an IR filter on your phone camera, you will actually see the points of light projected on everybody in the room.
Oh, wow.
It's very creepy. You're literally getting bombarded with UV from this thing and don't even know it. But it's a brilliant idea, and it basically allows it, if it can figure out the distance between this sensor and every single point of light it's projecting on your body, it can literally replicate your movements.
Okay, and then another accessory that we need to mention is the HD DVD.
The what? I'm not familiar with that component. Where did you see such a thing?
Do people remember that there was a format war between HD DVD and Blu-ray, and Microsoft lost?
Big time. Very, very big time. So what ultimately happened in this war is that Blu-ray ended up having a higher capacity overall, and HD DVD basically lost that war because, as you guys know, it's very, very hard to have different formats in different homes, right? It's just like the whole Betamax versus VHS, right?
Yeah.
It was the same exact thing. You had these two disc wars going toe-to-toe, and ultimately Blu-ray won it. And what that did is just deal a crippling blow to the HD DVD that was in the Xbox.
And to be fair, Microsoft gave it a good go.
They did.
They released a pretty nice looking external DVD drive that you can plug into your Xbox 360.
Which also doubled amazing as a DVD drive for your computer.
Oh.
You could plug it in. That's how I used mine, because obviously I wasn't going to use it as an HD DVD drive on my Xbox anymore. But no, it worked great as a standalone external computer DVD drive.
And there are a bunch of HD DVD movies out there that you can find at sometimes pawn shops. They have a very distinctive color to them. Yeah, I mean, the format's actually pretty decent. So if you happen to have the drive or get it cheap and you care, you can get those movies and watch them in, relatively inexpensive. All right, well, now should we move on to games?
Let's do it.
All right. Okay, so to start off here, it was hard to come up with a list of games for one particular reason for me personally. Here's going to be the number one feedback for this section. A lot of people are going to be like, oh, that game came out on PC and it's cheaper. It's potentially better. It's potentially worse. I think it's important for us to say at the beginning here that Microsoft makes the Xbox 360 and they make Windows.
Yeah.
And so there were a lot of games that came out on both systems. And so, like, for instance, Oblivion.
Yes.
So I played Oblivion on the Xbox 360. I love this game.
Amazing game.
Absolutely incredible.
That's like old school GTA basically.
Oh, absolutely. And actually, if I remember right, this might have been the game that broke my Xbox.
It's entirely possible.
Yeah, because I remember I wanted to play it so badly and I couldn't. But you could argue that maybe the Steam or PC version has all the mods, better this or that. And so for the most part, a lot of the games we're going to pick here, we think are probably better on the actual Xbox.
Correct.
It's a matter of opinion. It's a disclaimer. We just want to put that out there.
Wait, people on the internet have opinions?
I know, it's crazy, isn't it?
It's totally crazy.
It's something new. It's a fad.
Yeah, I wouldn't know nothing about this YouTube thing.
So tell me about Gears of War.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so Gears of War is, I believe, the top selling game.
It's a system seller.
It is.
Clearly.
It literally is. Yeah. The Gears of War game, I believe they have 4 now total in the collection.
Right.
For me though, Gears of War 2 was absolutely my favorite.
Yeah.
I literally bawled like a baby playing this, and I don't want to create any spoilers for you guys that haven't played it yet, but the story and the characters in this game really pop out with you.
Yeah.
But the thing that I loved about it was the gameplay was absolutely unique. The way that you control the people in this game and the way that you move them behind cover and engage targets as a third party begins to feel so natural that you end up feeling like you are just perfectly commanding every single move.
This game,
it's amazing.
It's considered to be the game that perfected cover-based shooting.
Absolutely.
And it's funny because the series became really popular, and then it got other series started to do it more. Like, for instance, Mass Effect, which is a hardcore RPG.
That's right.
Has very much elements of Gears of War.
I see a lot of elements of Gears of War in games now, especially the third-person perspective. You can tell that they borrowed a lot of it.
Uncharted.
Exactly. Yeah. And like all the Naughty Dog stuff, really.
Yeah, that's true.
And like even the cover system and things like, I don't want to call it Rockstar or anything, but even like GTA and stuff like that, leaning behind cover and stuff, it feels very, very similar. So yeah, this was a game changer. And Gears of War, the original, was just a blast to play. Yeah. Very, very relatable. But I have to say that Gears of War 2 was the one that really I couldn't put down. I had to play all the way to the end.
And co-op in Gears of War was freaking amazing.
Amazing. Probably some of the best.
I know. I had a friend of mine who played the game multiple times.
Yep.
And then when I finally got in, he was helping me stay alive. And he was across the country, Xbox Live. We had the headsets. It was awesome.
And the curb stomping and the chainsaw attacks, it did not disappoint at all.
Did not disappoint.
The only thing that I would add to the series, the Gears of War Judgment towards the end, I didn't really... I felt like Gears of War Judgment felt like it was an outcast.
Yeah.
It didn't really feel like Gears of War to me. I still think it's a worthwhile title to have and to play, but the first 3 Gears of War are just... They're magnificent. If you collect Xbox, this has to be like one of the first games that you play, honestly.
All right. So for me, one of the most surprising things about it was that it had a lot of really great Japanese shooting games.
I wouldn't know, actually.
It's hilarious that you wouldn't. Right. So you haven't played Death Smiles?
I have not.
Akai Katana, I believe that's how you say that. Raiden 4.
Okay. Getting a deep look into the psyche that is the Metal Jesus here.
Especially this one right here.
Was that excellent?
Yes.
Ooh.
Cute Japanese girl
That's some
shooting
good box art right there. That would have done well.
But the thing is that they were really well represented. These are games that are like bullet hell style shooters or Gradius style shooters, arcade shooting games, but they're all really great on the 360. And a lot of these didn't get ported over to the PlayStation 3.
You know what, though? Funny fact about that is that a lot of people don't realize Xbox 360 did not sell well in Japan.
Right.
It did not. Japan had such a crushing loyalty to Sony that the Xbox all but got pushed out. Now, I think that changed as time went on. It became more of a mainstream console. And things like that. But it's cool to see that there actually are titles that are developed for it. You know, there was companies that were still willing to go out there and put themselves out there and create those games.
Absolutely.
Even with a low adoption.
It's true. And for collectors and fans of the genre, it's a really cool system to collect for because most of these games are not that expensive. So
cool. Very cool. Now, for me, the second best series, and a lot of people are going to probably beat me up for this because they think, oh, it's got to be the first because that's Xbox. Halo. The only reason why I don't put Halo first is because it is an FPS, first person. I thought Gears of War was a much more unique game in what it brought to the table. But you cannot deny Halo. Halo is an amazing console shooter. All of them were good. I didn't play a single Halo game that I didn't like. Halo 3 was personally my favorite.
And this game is amazing. The reason why I want to mention that is because, you know, everyone was kind of like, can they keep the magic going?
Yeah.
But I put this in on my 360 and I was like, holy crap, look at all the detail here.
Well, you get to understand the relationship between Master Chief and Cortana.
Right.
4, and that's something that hadn't been really explored fully in the previous version. So that alone was worth playing that game. But Halo 3 for me was absolutely amazing. But they're all great games. If you're into first-person shooters, as far as an Xbox exclusive, these are absolutely amazing.
Absolutely. Okay, so you mentioned Japan. I wanted to mention some RPGs because one of the things that was interesting is that Microsoft did not do very well with the original Xbox in Japan either.
No.
And so they knew that they're going to have to go all in on RPGs when the Xbox 360 came out, and they did. So they created a bunch of they worked with Japanese developers to make several of them.
Right.
That only came out on Xbox. And the one I want to talk about is Lost Odyssey. So this has people who made Final Fantasy.
Okay.
Legend of Dragoon on PlayStation 1.
Very familiar.
Yes. Shadow Hearts on the PlayStation 2, and a bunch of other people went in and made this epic RPG that was only available on the Xbox 360. So this is 4 DVDs long.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. It's about 50 plus hours, and it's really, really cool. It's definitely old school turn-based combat, but then they got there's an interesting story where they tried to really up the emotion in this game, and they did it through a style of almost like visual novels.
Okay.
Have you played very many visual novels where there's like, you know, there's a lot of dialogue and you're kind of clicking through? Yeah. So this game had that, and it was kind of ahead of its time a little bit. It's a really high quality RPG, and not many people talk about it.
I actually didn't know about it.
And it's not expensive, and it was Microsoft's attempt to. This is one of like 4 games that came out that they tried to break the Japanese market.
Still not so successfully, though.
I know.
All right, so the third game that I'm going to talk about that honestly for me is what made the console.
I knew this was going to be,
I'm a race car guy, though, so I absolutely love race cars, and that's the Forza Motorsport series. And the reason being is I was incredibly loyal to Gran Turismo.
A lot of people were.
On the PlayStation, and everybody argued when Forza first came out that, oh no, nothing can dethrone Gran Turismo, it's a true simulator, this is just a game. And Forza, like, just ran with it.
They stepped up.
They stepped up, and it scared Sony so bad that the next incarnation in their franchise, I believe, was Gran Turismo 5. They had to do a prologue for it, and then they waited forever to release it because they just never could get it to a level that they thought that they could compete.
And that's the thing is that Polydigital, which makes Gran Turismo, they take like 4 or 5 years in between like installments.
Yes.
And that's a long time in gaming.
Massive.
I mean,
that's like operating system time.
Yeah, exactly. Where Forza was able to crank these out every 18 months or so, every year and a half.
Oh, Turn 10 Studio was like, they were the bakery,
machines.
just pumping the stuff out.
And every time that these would come out, they would show gameplay footage and you'd just be like, holy crap, that looks amazing.
The graphics were amazing. Yeah. The frame rates that they were hitting with the graphics that they had were amazing. You could tell it was just so highly optimized for the console.
All the licensed cars that you would normally get.
Yep. And yeah, the expandability of the franchise, it's like, even a year after you bought the game, there was new cars.
Yeah.
coming out. Absolutely love it. And then even when they started to branch out into like Forza Horizon,
right, which you have here,
which I have right here, I thought that, oh God, Forza, you're gonna ruin it. Don't
Need
do
for
that.
Speed.
You're throwing it away. And no, it turned out to be absolutely amazing. And I played every bit as much on Horizon as I did the rest. The Forza series just seems like it's a force to be reckoned with. And I would say it's the closest thing you're gonna get to a simulator experience on a console.
You know, it's funny you mention that because Forza Horizon 2 is the one reason why I want an Xbox One. Because I know that would just be awesome on that console, but I'm like, nope, I can't buy a whole console for one game. I won't do it.
Just don't play Forza Motorsport 6, whatever you do, because the 60 frames per second will spoil you. And when you go to Horizon, it's only 30.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, I kind of did that too. I went back to it after I played Forza 6 for a while. I went back to Horizon. I was like, why is the frame rate so slow?
That's funny.
But otherwise, it's epic.
And we're going to stick with the racing theme here. Burnout, I mentioned it. Burnout Revenge.
Yeah!
Probably wondering why I have a Burnout game here. Aren't these on every system? The truth is actually that Burnout Revenge originally came out on the PlayStation 2.
Yep.
Came out on the original Xbox. The only HD version of it was released on the 360.
Ooh, I did not know that.
I know.
Actually.
And so this is a really cool version to have. And I consider this to be kind of the last of the great Burnout games. Paradise City was good.
Yeah, that was the one that I think was most recognizable by everybody.
Yeah, it's open world, but you lost crash mode. This has proper crash mode. And again, all the graphics are updated. This is a really cool version to have.
That's epic.
Is that it for you? Oh, okay, so I'm still going. All right.
I only have 3 games that I care about. The rest of it,
I only have a couple more. So
I don't play all these obscure Japanese titles.
This is a Microsoft title. Actually,
I'm very familiar with Fable, actually.
Yeah, and so Fable is such a cool RPG series. I played the original Fable on the original Xbox. Fable 2 is my favorite, though, because you get the dog. And the dog is really, he's a cool companion.
Kind of a dog guy.
I'm kind of a dog guy.
You are.
But what was really cool about this game is that they took the customization to a whole other level. So you get to choose your sex, but then you also get to choose...
Sorry.
That's right. You can play... Actually, to be fair, I played as a woman in this game because the dialogue would change. And so it'd be kind of fun to try that.
Oh, okay. All right.
But then also beyond that, your alignment changes. So for instance, at the very beginning of the game, you get to choose the fate of the town in a moral choice, whether you side with the thieves or the sheriff, and the game just continues on. So basically, like, you'll see like what happens to the town based on your choices early on in the game.
That's awesome.
How you look in the game is also determined on like your alignment and whether you're good to people, the reputation in the world.
That's pretty unique.
It is pretty cool. You can buy property. This game is epic, and I have to mention it because it's so cool. So,
very cool.
All right, and then finally, a lot of people get pissed if I didn't mention Alan Wake. So
let him attack me. I didn't get into it that much.
Alan Wake is actually a pretty cool game. It's if you are a fan of Stephen King and that sort of old school 80s horror, this is your game. It's a survival horror game. Amazing graphics. It took years for them to make it. Just a really cool premise. It has awesome lighting, really interesting story. So yeah, another great Xbox 360 game.
And I love the box too. I loved some of the boxes that these games came in because I know you're a big box collector yourself.
Right.
And there are some really, really cool box versions of these games out there to collect.
That reminds me is that I mentioned shooters and also faceplates. So some games actually came with faceplates. So that's what this is right here.
Very cool. I was wondering about that.
That's why it looks like this.
Okay.
Because this is a Japanese shooter with a custom faceplate that you could slap on your console.
Kind of sad that Microsoft took that away, though.
I know. All right, well, that is our epic Xbox 360 buying guide. How do you think we did?
I think we did all right.
I think we did.
It's pretty hot in here, but I think we did all right.
So, dude, where can people find you on the internet?
You can come over and find me at barnerd.com, or you can search for Barnacules Nerdgasm on YouTube. If you can spell that, I'll leave that up to you.
And I will also link to our epic trip to Portland because I think that is one of my favorite videos that we did. It's so funny.
It is. That was genuinely a lot of fun.
Definitely a lot of fun. All right, guys, thank you very much. We'd love to know down in the comments that what games you think first-time Xbox 360 collectors should jump on.
Absolutely.
There are tons of them. We could have did an entire honorable mentions.
Yeah.
All right, guys, thanks for watching my channel. Thank you for subscribing, and take care.
Peace.
One last thing that I forgot to mention in the video that I wanted to bring up here at the end was that Microsoft changed the original Xbox 360 controller in 2010 to include transforming D-pads. This is a really cool feature where you can rotate the D-pad and turn it into a 4-way or an 8-way D-pad. So it's pretty cool depending on what kind of game you are currently playing, and not everyone knows it does that. All right, thanks very much for watching. Metal Jesus here, and I am back again with Casey. How's it going, dude?
Pretty good.
Dude, it's awesome having you here on the channel because we're doing a Wii buying guide. And when I was thinking about the people who'd be perfect for this, well, there was only one name. And that name was you, because you own all of the Wii games.
Yeah, I do, and today we're going to talk about all the console variations, the accessories that you can pick up for the Wii, some of the rare titles, and a handful of games that we selected for day one purchases.
This is going to be an awesome video. You guys are going to love it. Let's take a look.
Alright, this is the original Wii, and this is my personal original Wii. That's why it's all beat up, but it's got a lot of gameplay in it. And when it first came out, it was 2006 during the holiday season. And it was so popular that people were waiting in line.
I remember that. That's right. Yeah, people were going crazy trying to resell them and buy them for like $1,000 or something.
The thing is, it was $250 when it first came out, and people were selling it for $500, $700. It was crazy. Because Nintendo's plan was make something that was family oriented. Something that your grandma can pick up and play. Right? So eventually people started getting these and they were like, wow, this is amazing, and there were shortages.
Yeah, I remember that, actually. That's funny, huh?
On purpose? Who knows?
Yeah, well, so the first model is one of my favorites because it is the one that will play GameCube games, right?
Yeah, exactly. So you had an instant library of 500 games because it played all the GameCube titles. And the cool thing is, it has all 4 GameCube ports, 2 memory card slots. Yeah. So it's perfect.
Yeah, definitely. Huh, that's cool. Now, how does this hold up though? I mean, that's your original, does it still play?
Yeah, it does. It still reads discs, doesn't have any problems with that. It came bundled with the Wii Sports, which is still one of the best games for the system because everybody can just pick up and play.
Yeah, yeah. Definitely a perfect pack-in, right? Just anybody can play it, have a lot of fun. Now, how about as far as connecting it to like your television? Like, what are the video outs and stuff like that?
It came with composite cables, so the RCA cables.
So that's just the yellow, right?
Yeah, just the yellow, red, and white. But you can upgrade to component.
Right.
So you can have, I believe, 480p on this.
Yeah, which looks pretty decent on a modern HD television. So.
Yeah, but you can actually upgrade to the Wii 2 HDMI, and this is a third-party
adapter, essentially.
Yeah, adapter that you can just plug in the back, and then you plug in your HDMI cable in here.
You showed me this, and I immediately wanted one. I had no idea something like that existed.
It's so cheap. It's like $5 to $10.
Oh, I'm so buying one. That is awesome. So, okay, so the original model had obviously full GameCube support. Did it always have that, or what did the other models have?
Well, the other model, let's talk about that. So this is the blue Wii, and this got released in 2011.
Okay.
And it was titled the Family Edition.
Oh, I've seen that name. Okay.
And it was released during the holiday season again, and I think they did that so that they can have a cheaper Wii.
Okay.
Because this did not come with a stand, so they saved like $1.
Yeah.
And it didn't have GameCube compatibility.
Oh, okay.
So you can't open this flip top, no ports. And another thing is all the labels, they're horizontal, so it's meant to stand like this when you play it.
That's a good point, actually, is that the Wii originally would be either or, right? Like vertical, which seemed like almost the way to do it. Like when they would show it on camera, the Wii would be vertical.
Exactly, and that's why it came with the stand when the original Wii came out.
Okay, interesting. And so, so the Family Edition, they got rid of all the GameCube stuff to save money. But as far as everything else, it still works and plays the same?
Yeah, it still has the SD card slot, it still has internet connectivity.
Okay.
Just no GameCube compatibility.
And then a couple of years later, they surprised everyone and released this model.
Wii Mini.
Yeah.
And it's not that much smaller than the Wii. I mean, if you compare the two, the same height, the same width, it's just an inch shorter in length.
Why do you think they did this? I mean, what was changed about it?
The thing is, it has that retro factor.
It does. It almost looks like
retro
something from the 70s or early 80s, doesn't it?
Yeah, and it has a top loader.
Which a lot of companies do. I mean, where at the end of a console's life, maybe to save money, maybe to cut down on wear and tear. I don't know.
Exactly. It's a little bit lighter, and it's missing a lot of features. One of them being the ability to connect to the internet.
What? Okay, so that's really weird because obviously Nintendo had a ton of success with the Wii Virtual Console,
Yes.
right? I mean, why would they do that? To save like $1?
Now, this is my guess. This was a Canadian exclusive.
Oh,
So
okay.
in 2012, it was released in Canada for like $100.
I remember that because I couldn't buy it here, right?
Yeah, and I was bummed out because I really wanted this. But little did I know it was missing a lot of features.
Okay.
And I believe the reason is they have some cottages in Canada where there's no internet connection.
I see.
So it's best to just buy one of these, leave it there.
Yeah.
So it's a vacation home.
Yeah, I was gonna say almost
essentially.
like for well, not hotels, but yeah, like little vacation things. Interesting, huh?
Yeah, and there's other features missing. There's no SD slot.
Okay.
So you can't
so it-
expand your memory.
But it has internal for probably the storage.
Exactly.
Okay.
And the other thing is, there's only one USB port in the back.
Oh, okay. Huh. Maybe that affects games like, say, Rock Band or something like that, right?
Correct.
Huh.
And if you want to connect on a hard drive to the back,
Right.
I mean, you're using up a slot.
Huh. Okay. So not a great console, but it's out there if you run across it.
Yeah, and also there's no GameCube backwards compatibility. That's another thing.
Such a bummer. I know. Okay, well, that is the consoles. Let's take a look at the accessories.
All right.
Well, let's start with the original controller.
Well, this is the original controller. This is the Wiimote and the nunchuck. And you would just connect the nunchuck to the bottom of the Wiimote. And the cool thing about the Wiimote, besides the fact that it's a motion sensor, is there's a little speaker here.
That's right.
So when you're swinging it, you can have little sound effects.
Yeah.
Some people don't like that, but I think it's a little quirky.
I like it, yeah. And that's the other thing that we should probably mention is that there is a Wii bar that attaches to the Wii that sits in front of your television. So you will need that if you grab a Wii.
Exactly. If you buy one from the garage sale, make sure it does have that
Yep.
Wii sensor bar because you need it to use the Wiimote.
The other thing that's interesting about the Wii from playing games is also that a lot of them were sort of these motion, but a lot of them just simply said, hey, turn it sideways. And it works as a pretty functional old school controller.
Yeah, and that's the cool thing about it because they really made it family oriented because all the old school players, they want to play games like this. They don't
Yes.
want to be swinging the Wiimote and hitting the TV.
Yeah, exactly. So this is the first version. Now, what's really interesting about it though is that when the motion tracking came out, it was good, but it was limited for sure.
Exactly.
And so what they released is the Wii Motion Plus adapter, right? Is that what this thing's called?
Correct.
Yeah, which is basically, it gives more functionality to that controller.
Yeah, and it's an attachment that came out. It was like $20 or $25, but you would just attach it to the bottom, and you could still. I'm having trouble attaching it, but
I think it's got little buttons on the side.
yeah, once you attach it,
There you go.
you can also attach the nunchuck controller to the bottom.
Yeah.
But what it does is it makes it clunky. It's
Yeah.
a bit long and huge.
It's not as elegant, is it? And,
Exactly.
And I even have like these gel things that are extra long and stuff like that, and it's like, yeah,
But it does help with the turn and the gyroscopic motion of the Wiimote because of this added attachment.
And there were some games that definitely take advantage of it. The one that comes to my mind is Real Steel or something like that? It's
Real Steel 2.
Right. And it's light years better than the original game. It just seems much more sort of one-to-one movement.
Correct. Same with Skyward Sword.
Right. But then later, they, of course, integrated that.
Yes, and it is a much better design in a couple ways. So you don't have the extra attachment, and also in the back, there's a sync button that you could just press outside of the Wii.
Oh, that's right, because when you're going to sync these controllers, you have to, it's in the battery compartment, isn't it?
Yes, you got to open the back, you
That's
got to
right.
press the button, but this is so much better. you just press it on the outside.
Huh, that's cool.
And there's several variations of this controller.
Now, this is a little rubber attachment here, though, right?
Correct.
Just for grip, whatever.
Exactly. And most of it does come with these additional Wii covers. Especially when you get the Mario, Luigi, Princess Peach ones.
I see. Okay.
Yeah. And there's also a Zelda one that came with Skyward Sword.
Oh, okay. I remember people freaking out about that.
Yeah, that one was rare.
That's cool. So that's the normal controller, but then Nintendo also released a bunch of controllers. Kind of, I mean, why do you think they did? So what is that one right there?
This is the Wii Classic controller.
Okay.
And the purpose of this is for games that you want to use for virtual consoles, maybe some WiiWare games, ones that don't use the motion controls.
Don't you think that Nintendo in some ways was perhaps surprised by the success of the Wii Virtual Console? You know, because I mean, they put out hundreds, if not thousands of games on that. I mean, it did really well.
It did, and that's just so much money for them because they don't have to release physical copies.
Right.
It's just straight downloads.
Yeah.
And this is the perfect controller for it because it's kind of like a Super Nintendo controller,
Yeah.
so it has that old nostalgic feel to it.
It's very comfortable.
Yeah.
Huh.
But they improved upon it when they released the Pro controller.
Pro.
In my opinion, it's better because it's more ergonomic.
It looks like an Xbox 360 controller almost.
Yeah, that or a PS2, but
Yeah.
those are excellent controllers.
Oh, sure, absolutely.
And one thing is, it's the analog sticks are spread out a little bit further compared to the classic controller.
Oh, is it? Okay, interesting.
So it has a really good feel to it, even the top buttons.
Does that have any motion built into it?
No.
Okay, so it's simply just for playing, normal games, I guess is what you'd say.
Yeah, it came out with Monster Hunter Tri, I believe. It
Okay.
came bundled with that.
Huh, okay. And then you mentioned earlier that there were these kind of snap-on adapter things for the Wii remote, right?
Yeah, and this is one of them. This is the Wii Wheel, and you would simply take the Wiimote and just insert it, and it becomes a totally new controller.
Yeah.
It's fun for racing games because you could just hold it and kind
Like
of
Mario
just turn.
Kart. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then also there was, like, say, the Wii Zapper, because Light-Gun games are awesome on the Wii, by the way.
Yeah, they are.
And so that was kind of a similar thing where you'd snap it in there. And we don't have the Wii Zapper here, but you've got something I think is even cooler.
Yeah, this is cool. This is the Cabela's Big Game Hunter shotgun.
That's awesome. Just like, hold up your shoulder. That's killer. Any other accessories out there? I mean, we mentioned sort of like the third-party ones, but...
Yeah, there's a bunch of Nerf accessories where you could attach a tennis racket or a baseball bat or boxing gloves to your remote. All right, and we have the Wii Fit, which came packaged with the Wii balance board.
This was huge, right?
Yeah, it was a huge success.
Yeah.
In the Guinness Book of World Records, it was like the #1 selling scale.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But it's a game peripheral, not really a scale. But this game that came packaged with it, it came with 30 different fun activities. It would test your strength, your balance, your flexibility, things like that. And it would calculate your BMI index, your body mass index.
Now, and I haven't played this clearly, but have you done this before?
Yeah.
And so do you use the remote or the Wii mode as well with it, or how's it work?
Yes, you can. There's actually a Wii Fit Plus version where you really use the Wii remote and nunchuck along with the balance board.
Okay. Huh. That's cool. And you also find those all the time, like in thrift stores.
Yeah, and you can find them for $2 to $5.
Yeah.
I mean, $10 at the most.
Yeah.
But there's other games that the balance board uses. One of them, which is a really good title, is Punch-Out.
It uses it. How does it do that?
Well, you could use it with just the Wiimote and nunchuck, or just the Wiimote itself. But you could integrate the Wii balance board and use it to duck, to dodge left and right.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So it's measuring like your movement.
Exactly.
That's pretty cool. Huh.
And there are some bad examples, including Super Monkey Ball Step and Roll.
That sounds bad.
Yeah,
Step and roll.
It is so hard to control it with the Wii balance board.
I bet.
It's too tight.
Oh, okay. So you're like moving the plane, essentially, the environment.
Exactly. You're trying to move the monkey ball, but if you're using the balance board, it's just too tight for turns.
Huh.
So it's hard to collect all the bananas. It's hard to progress through the levels.
Yeah. Now, when I showed up here in the spot, you had a bike.
Yeah, and that is the Wii Cyberbike.
Cyberbike.
It came packaged with Cyberbike Cycle Sports, and the cool thing about this is when it first came out, it was only sold on the QVC shopping network, so it was really hard to find.
Okay.
I didn't get it right away. I searched for a couple years, and eventually I got one via trade.
Okay.
Yeah. It's an amazing piece, but it's only meant for this game.
Yeah, I mean, it takes up so much room.
Yeah, so you go around the world collecting trash in this game, but there's also an exercise mode, so you could just cycle.
See, having to store that is punishment for trying to go for a complete collection, isn't it?
Yeah.
That is too funny. All right, well, that is some of the accessories. Let's check out some of the more rare or collectible games.
All right, let's talk about just a handful, maybe 3 games that are pretty rare. So if you go out garage sailing or at thrift stores and you find this for cheap, like $5-10, pick it up because it is hard to find games like Xenoblade Chronicles.
Yeah.
This was a GameStop exclusive, which makes it tough to find.
Right.
And it's a Japanese RPG game with 70 plus hours of gameplay, so it's definitely worth it. Another RPG strategy type game is Fire Emblem Radiant Dawn.
These games are really fun.
Yeah, they're really good quality, even for all the previous Nintendo systems.
Yeah.
So there's a good following for that game. And lastly, you'll be surprised, but My Horse and Me, Riding for Gold.
Yeah, you mentioned this, I'm like, what?
Yeah, it's made by Atari, and I don't know why, but it is a really rare and expensive title.
Huh. Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
All right, and then now, at the end here, let's get into some games that we recommend you pick up day one.
Yeah. All right, the first one is called Spyborgs. It's made by Capcom, and it's a beat-em-up game. Yeah, the cool thing about this is there's massive bosses, and there's 2-player co-op missions.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so it's a really cheap game, $5 to $10, so definitely pick it up if you find it.
Now, does this support the classic controller, or it seems like it would?
No, unfortunately it doesn't.
Okay, so maybe now's a good time to point out that on these games, over in, on the back somewhere, it'll tell you what controller it supports.
Yes, including GameCube controllers, if it does support that.
Yeah, that's cool. All right, love the cover.
The next one is Excitebots Trick Racing, which is the sequel to Excite Trucks.
Yeah, so when we were picking out games, I was like, ooh, we got to put this one in there because this is so much fun.
Yeah, it's a really good racing game, and you get to play as an animal robot or insect, and there's like 25 different levels, and they're actual locations on Earth. That's another cool part.
I didn't know that. I think for me, the thing that surprised me about this game was how well it uses the motion controls.
Yes.
Yeah,
some people complain about it, but you just gotta take 5 minutes and get used to it.
Yeah.
And once you get used to it, all the tricks and all the jumps, it becomes second nature.
Oh yeah, such a fun game.
Next is another racing game that's a must-have, which is Mario Kart for Wii. And the reason why I like this is because the battle arenas for the battle mode is way better compared to the Wii U version, which uses just the normal tracks. So this takes it back to the old Super Nintendo and N64 days.
Oh, cool.
Next one is Boom Blox Bash Party, which is an awesome 4-player party game. It's a combination of Jenga and Angry Birds. It just uses the Wii motion controllers really well for this game.
Now, I noticed that you picked the second one, which I haven't played this one. There's 2 of them, actually. Is there a big difference between them? Or?
Yeah, just more party modes.
Oh, I see. Okay,
yeah, so it's more fun.
Yeah, okay.
Donkey Kong Country Returns. Now this one can be challenging, but it just brings you back to the old Super Nintendo days of Donkey Kong Country. That's why it was one of my picks.
I see. Yeah, I've heard it's tough.
Yes, you'll get frustrated, but it's well worth it.
That's cool.
Another one that's good is WarioWare Smooth Moves. So if you're familiar with the series for GBA, for DS, GameCube, this is another one. And there's tons of micro games in here that are just weird and quirky, instant gratification games. And those are the type of games I like. Just pick up and play.
Yeah, I'm surprised how much I enjoy this series. And it's occasionally so bizarre, like when the nose and it's like got the drip coming out of it. And you're just like, what's going on here?
Yeah, that's what makes it fun.
I know, it is. It's super fun.
And I had to include these. These are the Mario Party Galaxy games, 1 and 2.
Super Mario Galaxy.
Super Mario Galaxy. And it's,
So you're still in party mode.
yeah. Oh, what did I say? Mario Party?
Yeah.
Yeah, Super Mario Galaxy 1 and 2. And these are just amazing. The level designs in these are just really great. And
Yeah.
the soundtrack's awesome.
I've been trying to find a copy of 2, but it's still really expensive. Well, not expensive, but you know what I mean? It holds its value.
Yeah, it's still in the $20, $30 range.
Yeah, it's kind of
surprisingly.
neat. But it's a good game, so it's probably worth it.
Yeah, definitely. Another cool one is Resident Evil Wii Edition. This is the 4th installment, so Resident Evil 4. And this is a port of the GameCube version and the PS2 version, but this is the better version. This has HD graphics, and using the Wii motion controllers, it's really good because you can point and shoot. And you can move with the nunchuck.
Probably a little bit easier. I mean, the original game, I beat it, but you know, you're always kind of struggling to get it right on the head, right?
Yeah, and that's perfect for the Wii because
Yeah.
a lot of kids play it, and people that want to experience using the Wii motion controllers, this is a really good game to use it for.
That. This is a game I own, and I love this game.
Yeah, Sin and Punishment. The N64 version was great, and this Star Successor is also good. It's a really good rail shooter,
Yes,
as
it
you can
is.
attest.
Yeah, so much fun. And what I like about this game too is that it's a rail shooter, but it really uses the nunchuck in interesting ways because you're constantly bouncing around and dodging, and it's way more in depth than the typical kind of rail shooter, which is what I like. So
Yeah, and there's 2 players. I haven't had a chance to try 2-player mode yet, but I was wondering if it got tougher.
we should do that after this video.
Yeah. And I had to include a Kirby game, Kirby's Return to Dreamland. And as all Kirby games are, you have all the special powers. This one has 25, including some of the old retro super power-ups. And you can have up to 4 players in co-op mode.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and the thing I like about this is at the very end, once you beat it, there's a boss rush mode, so you can go through all the bosses.
Okay, that's cool. I played Kirby's Epic Yarn on the Wii, and I really like that one too.
Yeah.
It's a little bit on the easy side, but I just enjoyed that so much.
Yeah, and this one you could play as Meta Knight.
That's cool.
And lastly, we have The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword, which was released 25 years after the original Zelda on the Nintendo. Yeah, and this is great because it came with a soundtrack. The 25th anniversary symphony soundtrack. If you got the big box version, you also got the Zelda Wiimote.
That's right.
So they gave you lots of cool extras for this Wii exclusive. And there's like 40 plus hours of gameplay, and it really utilizes the Wii motion controller, which
That's
I
cool.
like.
Well, again, it's Nintendo's console. They know how to do it right, you know?
Yeah, and you could even fly in this one, but the swimming part's kind of tough with the Wii motion.
Okay. Huh. Well, dude, that's an awesome buying guide there. At the end, though, I do want to mention that while we covered kind of the more popular games, I do have a series of Wii hidden gems where I dig way deeper into it and cover some of the other games that are on the Wii that are actually really fun, because there are some.
Yeah, there's a lot of hidden gems. So
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's the thing about the Wii is that once you kind of dive into it, it's a really fun console to collect for. I love it. I mean, I was really surprised. I didn't expect to.
yeah, I mean, I was there from day one, and I'll be there until the last game gets released.
That's very cool. Dude, thanks very much for coming on and doing this buying guide. It's so awesome. Where can people find you on the interweb?
Casey the Game Nerd on Instagram and Facebook.
And he has a YouTube channel, and you do pickups videos.
Yeah, I do pickups videos. Actually, everything's all pickup videos on my channel. So if you don't like that,
But he happens to have some of the most impressive pickups videos in all of YouTube. I'm
thanks.
just saying.
appreciate that.
Awesome, guys. All right, well, thank you very much for subscribing. Thanks for watching my channel, and take care. Metal Jesus here, and I am back again with Kelsey. How's it going?
Pretty good. How about yourself?
I'm doing well. You brought a bunch of DSs here.
I did.
You went
A
crazy.
lot.
It's like a rainbow.
Yeah. So today we're going to be talking about the DS. We're doing a DS buying guide covering all of the systems from the original DS to the DS Lite, DSi, DSi XL, as well as accessories and some of the games we think you should own. There's a lot.
Yes, there is. This is going to be pretty cool. Let's take a look. a bunch of stuff here. Actually, why do you have so many systems?
Because these videos give me an excuse to go crazy. Is that a good answer?
You messaged me, I'm going to tell on you. So you messaged me, what, like a month ago or a couple weeks ago, and you went crazy buying Japanese DSs.
Yeah, so I buy a lot of stuff in bulk lots from Japan because you can get them really cheap that way. So I ended up buying like over 50 DSs.
50.
Now I'm definitely not going to keep all of them, but it was cool because now I can show off a bunch of different colors.
I know. That's what's so cool about this video is that we're going to show you stuff that I mean, in colors I've never seen. So this is really cool.
Awesome.
All right.
So we're going to start with the original DS. This one came out in 2004.
Fat.
Yes, the Fat DS. And it's actually pretty different than the one they showed off at E3,
Oh, really?
Which was just a few months before its release, which is really surprising. But they changed a little bit about it. It's cool. The DS in DS stands for dual screen.
Right.
And also developer system. They say that is canon. Whatever.
And from what I've read is that Nintendo at the time thought of this as sort of like another pillar of their income. And so it really was meant to go alongside of the original Game Boy Advance.
Yes.
And so
they thought that they were like, well, look, we could give you better specs, whatever, but what we really want to do is change the whole way you think of handhelds. And they definitely did that with this. It has a lot of features that were brand new. You know, it's nothing any Game Boy or any system had. First of all, 2 screens was brand new, unless you count the Game & Watch.
Yeah.
The touch screen has a microphone, had wireless capabilities, all kinds of really cool things. One of my favorite parts about it is the download and play feature. So there were some games where only one of your friends needs a cartridge, and you guys could still play the game together as long as you were close in proximity. And then there's also PictoChat, which I used to use all the time with my friends. It's just like a little chat room that 16 people can be in at once.
That's what you and I were playing?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So that's something I used to do, like when I was on the school bus in high school and stuff, would play with my friends all across the bus.
You know what's really cool about it, from my opinion, is that it doesn't require Wi-Fi. Like, it's its own network, which is, like, it's amazing. You can play it on the bus as a kid, and you don't have to connect to some sort of cellular network or anything. That's
you can just
pretty cool.
hang out with the people around you. So it's kind of, I mean, I guess they sort of did that with the link cable, but just, you know, this is the less messy version of that.
I had the original in gray, I believe. And yeah, it wasn't, when I first got it, I was like, dual screen. I can only look at one at a time. Like, what's the point of this?
Impressed.
I wasn't impressed, but I loved how creative they were with it. Also, too, from my opinion, the graphics were kind of around that N64 quality, but yet the screen's smaller, so you actually it looks decent.
Pretty good, yeah. And that was actually one of the things they first advertised as being part of it. They're like, look, you know, we make really great games on the Game Boy Advance, but this will give you the option to do both 2D or 3D. Yeah. And that was why they showed off Super Mario 64 as one of their first. That was like the first title they showed off on this thing.
Huh.
So that's kind of cool.
Cool.
Then they released the DS Lite, which is actually my favorite looking of the DSs.
Do they all have the dual screen thing on the top?
Yeah, it's like a little embossed dual screen logo on all of these. There's tons more colors than this. I have the Susan G. Komen breast cancer awareness one, which is a super exciting limited edition. And this one really didn't change a whole lot from the original DS. Oh, and the biggest thing we should mention, of course, is that these play Game Boy Advance games. Yeah. The original DS and the DS Lite play Game Boy Advance games. They don't play Game Boy Color. They don't play original Game Boy. Just Game Boy Advance. And I did a ton of this at the time. You know, I love how Nintendo typically does that, where here's a new system, but there's thousands of games you could potentially play on it. And I did too. I loved it for that. Yeah, you don't have to give up your old systems, your old games. You can still move them on to the new generation, which is really cool. So the Lite still supported that? Yes, the original DS and the DS Lite still supported Game Boy Advance. The only problem with that is, unfortunately, there was no way to do the multiplayer on those. Oh, okay. Which is frustrating, but get a Game Boy Advance, I guess. Then we move on to the DSi, which I have. This came in so many freaking colors. And Japan got some really cool special editions too, like this Saga 20th anniversary one. Really cool. They also had this Mario one. We got one similar, but it was an EXO. So the DSi added a lot of things, but it also took some away. So this can't play Game Boy Advance games. It's only DS, which makes it kind of less desirable. for most people.
But at this time, though, this was a success.
Oh, totally.
So at this point, Nintendo's probably like, hey, like to your point, you either get a Game Boy Advance or you buy this, and
right.
you know, you're set.
And this is cool. It adds 2 cameras. There's one on the outside that you can see, and then there's also one on the inside. There was also some like voice recording software. Best thing, of course, is that you can connect this to the internet, and this was their first kind of like eShop thing. And then they moved on to the DSi XL, which is just an enormous version of the DSi.
And there's no other differences. I mean, probably maybe a little bit better battery life or something. Or
most of these have at least 8 hours of battery at a full charge. The DS Lite and the DSi introduced screen brightness adjusting.
Okay.
So you can make them last a little bit longer, which is nice. On the lower settings, you could play this for like 16 hours, which is awesome. That's pretty long charge for a handheld. And one of the cool things that they said during development of this is that they actually made their engineering team drop this from, I think they said like chest height. It had to withstand 10 falls from chest height.
Really?
Without any considerable damage.
Oh, man,
that was part of their design.
That's why I love Nintendo. I mean, they think of that sort of stuff,
Yeah.
right? It's like, it's awesome.
They're like, well, you're probably going to have it in your pocket.
Yeah.
So if it falls out, we don't want you to have to return it after just one drop.
That's cool.
Which is probably why they went with the clamshell design, too.
Absolutely. And I love that design. So these are the 4 main models, but I want to mention the 3DS. And the reason for that is because I play all my DS games on my 3DS, and it plays them fairly well.
Yeah.
You know?
So the 3DSs do play regular DS games.
Yeah.
Which is nice. And the other thing that I want to mention before we move on to accessories is that these are region-free for DS games. Now, DSi games, there were very few, but there were like 3 or 4 games that you needed the camera function for this for, so you needed to have an actual DSi and not a DS Lite or original DS. Those are region-locked. Which is really weird, but that's like 3 games and you probably don't have to worry about it. If you pick up a Japanese DSi for really cheap, still probably going to be a good deal because you're probably not going to run into that problem very
And that
much.
explains why you picked these up, because
They were dirt cheap.
they're dirt cheap and you can play all the games.
Yeah.
So it's perfect. Huh, okay. All right, next let's check out accessories.
Okay, so the first accessory I wanted to talk about is the obvious one, which is chargers, because this is really freaking complicated.
And actually, I was confused. 'Cause when you came over, you're like, do you have this particular charger? I'm like,
What's
no.
the difference?
I know.
Yeah.
So it's for me.
So for the original DS, the fat one, this one shares the same charger as the Game Boy Advance SP, which is this plug right here.
Yeah.
And after that, they stopped using it. So this works for the original DS and the SP, and that's it. The next one's even more annoying because it only works for the DS Lite. That's this plug right here. So
only the second model.
only the DS Lite. It's
Okay.
the only one that uses it, and they never used it again. It's completely proprietary Nintendo thing, not useful for anything else. And then, thankfully, they got a little bit wiser, and they got this one for the DSi, and then they continued to use it for the DSi XL, the 3DS, 3DS XL, new 3DS. Finally wised up and let us have a charger for more than one console.
And that's why I didn't realize that there was this other charger, because I didn't know.
Yep.
You know, it's always worked for me. So
3 of them. So those are the chargers. You'll definitely want to know that when you're picking up the system. The rest of the stuff is just kind of fun.
Woohoo!
So I've got the Nintendo DS browser. This was for the original DS and the DS Lite, because once you hit the DSi, it already had an internet browser you could download.
Oh, so you had to buy a browser for it originally.
Yep.
Huh.
And this comes with 2 things. It's got the cartridge, which is the browser, and then a RAM expander.
On Game Boy Advance.
Yeah.
Oh.
For the Game Boy Advance slot,
Yeah.
Then my favorite accessory is the keyboard. This came with Pokemon Typing, which actually didn't come out in the States. It's just Japanese and European. We talked about that in another video.
Yeah.
So this was one that the US that the US did not get. There's a lot of other accessories the US did not get, which are awesome. There was a digital TV tuner. There was
Digital, which is cool.
Yeah.
Means you could use it today.
Yeah, exactly. There is a camera that came with. Have you ever heard of the DS Face Trainer?
No.
Okay,
What
so
is that?
it's a Japanese game where you like do different exercises for your face to make your face like be stronger and more perky, I guess.
Okay.
It's like a beauty routine
Yeah.
video game.
And Oh, I need
There's
that.
also there was a well, the pedometers came out here. There's like a personal coach and then the Pokewalker for Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver, which were just like little pedometers that you could have. Your Pokemon would grow while you're walking and stuff.
Huh.
So that's kind of cool.
That's pretty cool.
And then another thing that the States did not get, I don't actually have the accessory itself, but I have one of the games that goes with it. It's like a little card reader. It's kind of like an e-reader. And there were different arcade kiosks in Japan where you would get these little cards printed out when you'd play the game.
Wow.
And then you could scan them into your game. So like this one's kind of like a fashion game, and you'd go to the kiosk and get like a dress, and then you could scan the dress into the game.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
And then one of the few accessories I have is this one right here. Now, I think I got this at a garage sale without the game. So
Without the game.
I wasn't sure what it was for, and so I assumed it was for the Game Boy Advance, but you're saying it's for the DS.
That's for the DS, yeah. There was actually not a Guitar Hero on Game Boy Advance, but it goes in the Game Boy Advance slot, meaning
Yeah.
you can only use it for these two models. And that's another thing you sort of have to keep in mind with a lot of these accessories. Most of the ones I pointed out, you actually do need one of the older models for it, just because of the way the accessory plugs in. So like this one, you need an original DS or a DS Lite. Same with the card reader accessory for this. And of course that, and like the TV tuner and all of those things, they're all like, actually can't remember if the TV tuner does or not, but many of those things go into the Game Boy Advance slot.
Which, you know, actually is pretty cool that it was used. I mean, often in some of these systems in the past we've covered, that sometimes these expansion slots really aren't used, but in this, it was cool.
Yeah, they had a lot of really unique stuff, and the DS was just a really ambitious system overall, but it actually did most of it very well.
Yeah, very cool. All right, well, those are some of the accessories. It had a ton of games. We should talk about games.
We have a lot of suggestions here for you. There's still a ton more, so if we didn't mention your favorite game, I apologize. It was probably on our list at some point.
Right.
But there's a lot to see here, so I guess we'll start with platformers and puzzle platformers. The DS is an awesome system for this.
Yeah.
This one right here is one of my favorites. This is the Legendary Starfy, and I made you buy this. Did you play it?
I did for a while, until I got busy with something else, but I thought it was amazing.
Yeah, it's really fun. It plays a lot like Kirby, and it's got really similar graphical styles to it too.
Very colorful.
So yeah, this is one of the best, in my opinion, platformers on the DS. But there's also some other really notable ones like Scribble Nuts and Kirby Canvas Curse. That's a great one. Soul Bubbles, which was a Toys R Us exclusive, which is kind of odd.
Kind of a hidden gem.
Yeah.
You know, I love that game so much.
Yeah, the obvious one, of course, New Super Mario Brothers. This is like one of the best-selling games, if not the best-selling game on the console.
Yep.
And then more Kirby Mass Attack.
Yep, definitely. All right, and then we're going to go over to role-playing games, and the DS was home to a ton.
Oh my god, so many.
So many great role-playing games. And again, like, which one do we pick? Do we pick the obvious ones? Do we pick this or that? And so, you know, I want to pick a game that I think that everyone should go out and just buy day one, and that is The World Ends With You. When this came out, this was such a unique role-playing game. It takes place in Tokyo right now, so it's not a medieval RPG like a lot of them.
No dragons. Swords.
And what I love about this is that they really took the time to craft an RPG that uses the DS in really interesting ways. It's all real time, but it's gesture based. So basically, like, you tap on enemies, you do swipes. Plus, it uses the second screen really interesting because there's two real time battles going on. What else is really great about this game?
The soundtrack.
Oh, I was going to say the soundtrack. Yeah, I know, the soundtrack is this kind of like, you know, like hip hop, kind of cool. It's awesome. So.
Yeah, this is a great one on the DS just from how unique the gameplay is. This was definitely a game where they actually were like, okay, what can we do with the DS that would make this stand out from other RPGs as opposed to like a Final Fantasy or Dragon Quest or something.
And to that point, like, you couldn't do this on another sort of console with just a normal controller because of all those gestures.
Right.
So it's very cool.
There's a bunch more. Of course, the Pokemon games like Pokemon Platinum, Heart Gold, Soul Silver, those are great. Chrono Trigger, this is the best way, in my opinion, to play Chrono Trigger.
I know, which is saying a lot.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the Super Nintendo version is amazing, but being able to play this on a smaller screen where the graphics look really tight, you get the full motion video things that were introduced in the PlayStation 1 version. Those are some perks of owning this. I know you like this one a lot.
I love the Mario and Luigi series, and this is a really good one here as well. So they've never made a bad one, in my opinion.
Yeah,
so it's good.
And this actually in Japan was literally called Super Mario RPG 3.
Oh, okay.
So it is literally like, hey, this is like the Super Nintendo one. Play it. and Advance Wars, Infinite Space, some other really cool ones
we could have gone on forever.
I know.
There's Final Fantasy on here. There's Nostalgia. Yeah, a ton of
Rhapsody.
them. Oh yeah, that's right.
There's so many good ones. Next up, I want to talk about the action/adventure genre. The obvious choice here is Legend of Zelda, but we thought we'd do something a little bit more exciting than that. So I've got Okami Den. This one is my favorite. Did you play this one?
I did, and I think so many great things about this.
I love the original Okami, but this is, I think, better just because of the way it controls. So it's a little awkward to paint with a paintbrush when you're using a PS2 controller.
Yep.
Using the DS stylus made it so flawless, so easy.
Yep.
It's adorable. The art style is still gorgeous, just like the PlayStation 2 version.
And it's funny. It's a funny game. It's got a great heart and sense of humor.
It's got a lot of personality,
It does.
I would say. And it follows just the baby of Amaterasu. So, and then of course Castlevania, there's a couple of these.
Yep.
I haven't played this one specifically.
It's a great game.
It's pretty good.
Oh yeah, I mean the animation's great, it plays great, it's really fun. So it's highly recommended.
The DS is also amazing for rhythm games. So the best one in my opinion is Elite Beat Agents. I'm going to say /Oendon. That was kind of like the Japanese version of Elite Beat Agents. This is a super goofy game. The soundtrack's really fun, but it's mostly cool because you see like a super goofy, over-the-top comic book kind of story unfolding in the background while you're tapping on the screen and doing a rhythm game.
I want to play this game. People talk about it all the time.
Have you not played it?
No,
oh, it's so good.
I know.
This is definitely a must pick up if you get the DS. I also really like this. Of course, it's just a Japanese one, but Taiko no Tatsujin, which is Taiko Drum Master. This one comes with cute little like styluses that look like drumsticks.
Oh, really?
Which is cool.
That's cool.
And then Rhythm Heaven, which I think a lot of people know and love. It's kind of like WarioWare-like, where it's a bunch of little mini rhythm mini games. So this one's a lot of fun too.
All right, so next up, we're calling this shooters.
Yeah.
Okay.
The shoot 'em ups and or first-person shooters.
Yeah. So the first one here is Retro Game Challenge. Now this is a love letter to classic 8-bit gaming, and it's kind of collectible. This game is shot up in value. It sort of came out and people love it. It's super fun, got a great sense of humor. So. And
then Nintendo came along and did the NES remix, which is kind of the same.
I know. As soon as I saw that, I was like, oh my God, you guys totally did it, But some other things I want to mention here, though. The DS had some really interesting first-person shooters.
Yeah, totally.
And so the first one is Moon. Also, there are a couple Dementium. Is that how you pronounce it?
I think so. I would say Dementium, but I don't know if that's right.
No, you're probably right. But
these are horror games, and they're rated M, which is crazy on the DS, which is such a family-friendly console.
You are collecting M-rated games.
I am. I think 2 away from... There's not very many rated M games on the DS, so it's a short goal to hit, but...
That's cool. These games are pretty cool, though, to check out. And then also a couple just kind of action shooter games is Nanostray, and also, how do you say that? Bangayo, which was really...
I think so.
This was it's
a Dreamcast game.
Yeah, so very good version on the DS.
And then we also have racing games. There's not a ton that I would super recommend on the DS, but Mario Kart DS is like one of the best Mario Karts of all time. It is really, really good multiplayer, considering you're not like actually sitting next to each other and playing. Did you ever play this multiplayer with people?
No, I didn't.
Okay, I mean it's fun even without people, but the nice thing about this is download and play, one of those download and play titles we were talking about.
Okay.
So you only need one copy of the cartridge, and you and a bunch of friends can play. Now they have to play as Shy Guys, which kind of sucks, but it's a lot of fun and really well put together.
I was going to say one of the things I like about this version is that it uses the second screen really well. Like you wouldn't think a racing game would work that well on a DS, but I love the fact you could always see the map there. You can also see where your enemies are, the other players are, and also what weapons they have.
Which they sort of like squeezed onto the bottom of the screen into the corners on some of the other Mario Kart games, the maps and stuff. So it's cool that you have like you can actually glance down and see
which I do a lot, yeah.
And then I've never played this one, so
I know. Well, you had to come up with another racing game for the DS that we like. And this is my second favorite, and that is Trackmania. Trackmania is this really quick, short... Some of these races are like 30 seconds long. There's usually a stunt involved. It's totally arcade. It's super fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's great.
All right, so I also have some games that I'm just going to call casual games. I don't really know what else to call them or what category to shoehorn them into. This one maybe is like a sim game, but Nintendogs, this was a really big deal on the console.
Yeah.
This was where they were really, really trying to sell to people who normally did not play video games.
Right.
So in this, you raise a virtual dog and you can dress it up and take it on walks and all kinds of stuff. Despite it being a little too cutesy for me, I still enjoyed it. I still played it and liked it, even though I was a little bit more, I was playing RPGs and racing games and shooters, and I still enjoyed this. So it's got some fun. There's also Electroplankton, which is just kind of like a cool, you sort of make music on it, but in a really weird way, because you're just kind of using these little plankton, I guess, to arrange the music, which is a really interesting way to do it, but it's cool. And then my favorite is Animal Crossing Wild World, which I spent so much time playing, probably like 500 hours or so. I mean, it's like a lot. And it was, if you played the GameCube version, this is the biggest jump in quality from an Animal Crossing game to an Animal Crossing game. This one did online really well. You could play over the internet with people in other countries. I frequently had people from the, that I met on the internet coming over to my town and interacting with my neighbors and stuff. It's a fun little sim. If you like Harvest Moon, you'll like it.
Yeah, I always hear about these games, but it's always the time that people put in that scares the hell out of me. I'm like,
well, it sort of becomes a chore after a while too. You're like, because it goes in real time. So you're like, oh man, I gotta water my flowers today. I'm like, talk to my neighbors. They're gonna be mad at me. Yeah, it's another job.
Very cool. All right, and then is this our last stack?
I think so.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Cool. So what are we calling this one here? You
puzzle. Well, it sort of mixes puzzles and visual novels. Most of these are a little bit of both.
That's true. So, okay, well, we're going to start with one of my favorite games when I played this. Oh my god, Professor Layton and the Curious Village. So this is basically a puzzle game, but what's great about it, it's level 5, and they wrap around these puzzles this great story, great characters. There's actually like video in here where every once in a while I'll go to a cutscene and it tells about the story. It's just full of personality, and I love the puzzles. The puzzles are completely varied. There's math puzzles, there's sliding puzzles, there's drawing puzzles.
Sometimes I'm good at them, sometimes I have to use the hints. And actually, I'm not embarrassed to say I do use the hints because I'm much better at some puzzles than others, right? Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but tons of personality. Highly recommend this. And then
I love this game. This is 999 or 9 hours, 9 persons, 9 doors. This is like a horror puzzle game. It's kind of heavy in the visual novel part because there is a story. You will play this multiple times to get different endings and learn more about why you're there and why all these horrible things are happening. It is kind of challenging, but I definitely recommend it if you like horror games or if you like puzzle games. This one's really, really good, and there are 2 more in the series, so you won't be satisfied with just this one.
And then to round that out, we have a couple others here. So the Phoenix Wright, you have to mention the Phoenix Wright series because it's so iconic.
And these actually came out, the first couple of these actually came out on the Game Boy Advance in Japan, which we never got. And when we got it here, they did add a few things. They utilized the touchscreen, such as like dusting for fingerprints and that kind of stuff. But it really is, the first ones at least are just kind of a port of those Game Boy Advance ones translated.
And these games are huge.
Oh, yeah.
So popular. Ghost Trick. This is a game really surprised me. A little bit of a hidden gem, although people are starting to know about it today. But it's a puzzle game as well. So funny. And then, of course, Hotel Dusk Room 215. This is a really neat game because it uses the DS as an open book.
Yeah, this is one of the ones you can turn it sideways for, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
So cool. So that's a tip of the iceberg for DS games.
We could talk forever, and one of the other things I want to sort of mention is that there were a lot of issues with this too. The DS has a lot of awesome games and is a really great system, but they did run into some issues with like piracy and also bootleg cartridges coming in from China now, like especially of the Pokemon games. There's a lot of they'll work sort of, but bootleg versions of them.
Just be aware that they're out there. That's cool. So, I don't know. How many videos could we do of this? Like 10 more?
Yeah, when you told me we were doing a DS buying guide, I was like, I hope you're ready because I will bring 200 games.
So cool. So let us know down in the comments below what games you would recommend someone get day one, because maybe there's some games in there that we don't know about we need to add to our collection.
Totally.
So where can people find you on the internet?
You can find me on Twitter at @KelsLewin. You can also follow my podcast at GameBlitz Show. We're also on YouTube and Apple, iTunes, and Google Play, and all of that good stuff.
Definitely check it out. All right, guys, thanks very much for watching my channel. Thank you for subscribing, and take care.
What you Money that you fly. Where'd you get the information from? What you? The money that you fly.